friend, welcome back to this quiet journey. It is gentle to know that you are here, listening, breathing, and slowly arriving in this moment. Tonight, we walk together into a space where ancient wisdom meets modern hearts, where the mind softens, and the soul remembers something it has never truly lost. Across centuries, awakened minds have preserved subtle teachings, not as rigid doctrines, but as living whispers meant to guide tired hearts toward rest. These stories are not meant to impress the intellect. They are meant to soothe the spirit, dissolve tension, and reveal the quiet clarity that already exists beneath every thought. If you feel like it, you may notice where you are and how the night feels around you. There is no need to change anything. Simply allow yourself to listen as if the words were gentle waves carrying you towards sleep. Tonight, you will hear a collection of Zen-inspired tales, each carrying a soft insight into freedom and stillness. Within them are reflections that can subtly transform how you relate to fear, desire, doubt, and the restless search for meaning. These stories are not merely for drifting into dreams. They are echoes of realizations discovered by those who looked deeply into the nature of mind and found something unexpectedly simple. True peace, they realized, is not created by controlling life, but by understanding the essence of being. As we move through these reflections, you may feel a quiet shift inside. The weight of concerns may loosen. The endless movement of thoughts may slow without effort. Gradually, you may sense a calm awareness unfolding, like dawn appearing without struggle. So allow your body to soften. Let it be held by whatever supports you. Take one slow breath with me. And as you exhale, feel that something ancient and patient is meeting you exactly where you are. Let us begin with a story about searching for what has never been missing. Long ago, in the misty mountains of ancient China, there lived a quiet master named Yunmen. His monastery was modest, its wooden walls worn by wind and time. In winter, cold air slipped through narrow cracks, and his robes bore countless patches, each one a silent record of years devoted to practice. One frosty morning, when pale sunlight touched the temple windows, a wealthy merchant arrived at the monastery gates. He stepped from an ornate carriage, wrapped in robes of rare silk, trimmed with fur that shimmered in the light. Jewels glimmered as he walked toward the meditation hall where Yunmen sat in stillness. The merchant bowed deeply, his voice steady with confidence born from abundance. "Honored master," he said, "I have traveled far in search of wisdom. I bring generous offerings to support this temple. Please teach me the truth that I wish to obtain." Yunmen looked gently at his own worn robe, then at the merchant's splendid attire. The contrast was clear: richness beside simplicity, accumulation beside contentment. Without speaking, the master reached for a small pair of scissors nearby. With one calm movement, he cut a large opening through his sleeve. The merchant gasped, "Master, your robe is ruined. Why would you do such a thing?" Yunmen examined the torn fabric with quiet attention. "Yes," he replied softly, widening the opening with his fingers. "Now it reflects my understanding perfectly." The merchant frowned in confusion. How can a torn robe express wisdom? Yunmen smiled with gentle warmth. "My friend," he said, "you have come wrapped in layers of wealth and status, hoping to purchase insight as easily as goods in a marketplace. Look carefully." He lifted the torn sleeve so light streamed through it. This opening was always present in the cloth. I only revealed what was already there. He paused, letting the moment breathe. In the same way, your true nature has always been complete. Nothing is missing. No treasure can buy what you already possess, and no hardship can take away what has never belonged to circumstances. The merchant stared at the torn sleeve. In that quiet instant, something subtle shifted within him. His luxurious robes suddenly felt heavy, unnecessary, almost unreal. Behind all coverings, he sensed the same open space that shone through the master's sleeve. Ancient wisdom reminds us of a paradox. We are already whole, yet always learning. Much of life is spent chasing what we imagine we lack, while the very essence we seek has never been absent. Why do we search outside for what already lives within? Zen teachings suggest that we are conditioned to believe in scarcity. From early years, we learn that happiness must be earned, peace must be achieved, and worth must be proven. This belief creates an endless hunger, a restless longing that no external success can fully satisfy. The merchant's silk robes symbolize all the layers we build around ourselves. Perhaps for you, it is the dream of a perfect career, the hope of an ideal relationship, the pursuit of spiritual experiences, or the desire for recognition. These pursuits are not wrong, yet they become obstacles when mistaken for the source of completeness. Yunman's torn robe reveals a quiet truth. Perfection is not flawless appearance, but honest presence. The opening in the cloth does not destroy the robe's purpose. If anything, it makes it more real. In the same way, our mistakes and vulnerabilities do not diminish our deeper nature. They simply reveal that wholeness includes imperfection. On one level, our essence lacks nothing. On another, we continue to grow, learn, and heal. Both realities exist together, like stillness beneath movement. Notice how often the mind whispers, if only I were wiser, stronger, more accomplished, more spiritual. Then I would be worthy of peace. Yet peace is not a distant destination. It is the ground beneath every step. Like the opening in the robe, your true nature has never disappeared. It has only been covered by habits of seeking. Tonight, as you rest, can you sense the quiet completeness beneath your stories of insufficiency? Can you feel a peace that does not depend on outcomes? A love that does not require approval? A wisdom that does not need proof? Now, let us turn toward another story, one that reveals how authenticity arises when we stop trying to appear enlightened. In the ancient city of Kyoto, a wandering master named Iku walked through crowded streets filled with voices, laughter, dust, and ordinary life. Merchants called out to customers, children ran through narrow alleys, and the air vibrated with simple human activity. One afternoon, Iku passed a group of monks engaged in serious debate. Their faces were stern, their voices sharp with certainty. "A true practitioner eats only once a day," declared one monk, adjusting his perfectly arranged robes. "To eat more is attachment to pleasure," added another. "Even gazing at flowers distracts the mind from meditation," said a third. "We must avoid worldly temptations if we wish to awaken." They nodded gravely, refining rules and ideals with increasing intensity. Iku listened quietly for a moment. Then, without comment, he walked straight into a nearby tavern. Inside, farmers sat around rough wooden tables, their clothes stained with soil from the fields. Their faces carried fatigue, laughter, and the marks of honest labor. The monks followed in shock. "Master Iku," they exclaimed, "how can you enter such a place? We are monks. This is inappropriate behavior for someone of your standing. Iku had already sat down among the farmers, sharing rice wine and listening to their stories. He looked up with eyes bright and playful. "You are right," he said calmly. "You're monks. But I seem to have forgotten to be one today." One monk protested anxiously. "What about your vows? Your reputation? People look up to you as an example." Iku raised his simple cup in a quiet toast. "My vow is to awaken in each moment. As for reputation, it rests peacefully without my supervision." He turned toward the farmers again. "These people know when rice is ready by feeling its weight. They sense rain before it falls. They understand the rhythm of earth through their hands and bodies. Tell me, what truths do you know?" The monks fell silent. Their arguments suddenly felt hollow beside Iku's effortless presence. Later, as evening shadows stretched across the road back to the monastery, a young monk approached him gently. "Master," he asked, "were you teaching us something in the tavern?" Iku smiled softly. "Only if you were willing to learn." This story reveals that authenticity often carries more spiritual power than performance. We easily fall into the trap of spiritual perfectionism, mistaking appearance for realization. We become attached to identities, being wise, disciplined, or enlightened. This attachment can bind us more tightly than worldly desires, because it hides behind virtue. We confuse form with essence. Practices are meant to support awakening, yet we sometimes believe that perfect form guarantees insight. In doing so, we collect achievements while missing the heart of practice. We divide life into sacred and ordinary, imagining that truth exists only in temples and meditation halls. Yet the awakened nature permeates every moment equally. Iku's forgetting to be a monk was not rebellion, but freedom. He found deeper wisdom in ordinary connection than in abstract debate. Consider your own relationship with spiritual identity. Do you sometimes perform goodness instead of simply being present? Do you feel subtle pride in progress or judgment toward others, or anxiety about maintaining an image? Awakening is not something added. It is something released. Iku embodied this by responding naturally to each moment, without trying to appear holy. The farmers in the story represent grounded wisdom, knowledge born from direct experience rather than theory. True awakening is not talking about awakening. It is living. Tonight, as you soften into rest, can you let go of the need to improve yourself? Can you simply meet this moment without agenda? Now, let us listen to another story, one that reveals truth hidden in ordinary simplicity. High on Mount Kagami, a hermit named Ryoan lived in a fragile hut exposed to wind and rain. Villagers called him a fool, because his actions seemed to defy common sense. When children begged for food, he gave them his entire meal, then walked down the mountain to ask for sustenance himself. He wrote poems on fallen leaves, smiling as the wind carried them away where no one would ever read them. One spring morning, when cherry blossoms colored the mountainside with soft light, Ryoan knelt in his small garden. His hands moved slowly through the soil, planting seeds with the same attention he gave to meditation. Each seed received a quiet blessing before being covered with earth. A learned priest climbed the mountain to meet him, curious whether this eccentric hermit possessed true wisdom. He found Ryoan humming gently while planting flowers. "Master Ryoan," the priest said formally, adjusting his fine robes, "I have spent decades studying sacred texts and debating philosophy. Tell me, what is the true meaning of existence?" Ryoan continued planting seeds. "I plant them in hope," he said softly, "but I cannot know which ones will grow." The priest frowned. "That is not an answer to my question. I ask about life and death, not gardening." "Existence," Ryoan replied calmly, "is not a problem to solve. It unfolds like these seeds." He touched the soil gently. "Some will bloom into flowers. Some will feed birds. Some will return to the earth. All outcomes are complete in their own way." The priest insisted, "There must be an ultimate truth, a final explanation." Ryoan smiled and placed a single seed in the priest's palm. "Plant this," he said. "I have no time for such trivial things," the priest replied. "I have important spiritual work to do." Ryoan's eyes sparkled with quiet humor. "Then you have answered your question," he said. "There is no truth more important than the seed in your hand right now." The priest left convinced that Ryoan was a fool. Yet years later, whenever complex questions troubled him, he remembered the feeling of that small seed. And in remembering, his questions dissolved into simple presence. This story reminds us that awakening is not grand achievement, but a return to simplicity. We complicate the path because we fear the ordinary. And yet, the ordinary is where truth quietly waits. We often believe that true wisdom must be complex, distant, and difficult to grasp. We imagine that awakening belongs only to those who study endlessly and master intricate ideas. This quiet pride of the intellect keeps us chasing rare experiences while overlooking the quiet miracle of simply being alive. The priest in the story reflects the part of our mind that values theories more than direct experience. He has learned many words about awakening, yet he cannot recognize it in the simple act of touching the earth and planting seeds. This is the subtle sorrow of spiritual accumulation, gathering knowledge about freedom while missing the freedom that quietly unfolds in ordinary moments. Master Ryoan's gentle foolishness reveals what Zen calls the beginner's mind. It is a fresh awareness that meets each moment without assumptions. Children live in this state naturally, which is why they find wonder in small things that adults often ignore. Ryoan preserved this childlike openness throughout his life, discovering joy in actions others considered insignificant. The seed resting in his palm symbolizes the present moment itself. Like a seed, each moment holds limitless potential, yet that potential awakens only through attention and care. When we are busy searching for future enlightenment or analyzing the past, we overlook the creative power that exists right now. How often do you postpone peace until you reach some imagined spiritual milestone? Perhaps you tell yourself that once you understand more, once your meditation deepens, once your life becomes calmer, then you will finally feel at ease. Yet the peace you seek is already present in the quiet rhythm of your breath, in the simple awareness of being here. A Zen teacher once observed that the beginner's mind holds countless possibilities, while the expert's mind holds only a few. Ryoan embodied this openness. Each seed he planted was a new encounter with mystery. Each poem he released to the wind was complete in itself, needing no recognition. The purposelessness he described was not emptiness, but freedom from constant striving. When we engage in life for its own sake rather than for results, ordinary activities begin to glow with quiet meaning. Washing dishes becomes meditation. Walking becomes prayer. Planting seeds becomes a dialogue with the rhythm of existence. Ryoan lived this truth through simple generosity. He gave his poems to the wind, his food to hungry children, and his presence to anyone who came to his humble home. In giving, he discovered a joy that did not depend on possession. Tonight, as you prepare for rest, can you notice truth within something small and ordinary? Perhaps the gentle weight of your blanket. Perhaps the way your breath slowly deepens. Perhaps the silent work of your body restoring itself as you sleep. What if the deepest wisdom you seek is already here, disguised as this quiet moment? As ancient teachings remind us, peace is not found outside. It is recognized within. And now, as we continue this journey through the quiet landscapes of Zen, we encounter another teaching about the nature of our original mind. In a busy temple filled with the scent of incense and the soft sound of robes settling, Master Bank sat before a gathering of students. Farmers, merchants, and monks had come to listen to his words about the mind that exists before birth and beyond change. The hall was calm, until suddenly loud shouting erupted from the back. A visiting priest entered with fierce energy, proclaiming his own doctrines and condemning what he called false teachings. The listeners shifted uneasily, some irritated, others curious. Master Bank remained still. His face showed no trace of irritation. Instead, he smiled with genuine warmth. "Thank you, friend," he said gently. "Your passion for truth is strong. Please come closer so everyone may hear you clearly." The priest, prepared for argument, felt unsettled by this unexpected welcome. He approached cautiously, suspicious of hidden mockery. "You think you are clever," he said defensively. "I see through your politeness. You are trying to make me appear foolish." Bank's voice remained calm and sincere. "I can feel how deeply anger has arisen in you," he said. "Tell me, before you entered this hall and saw me sitting here, where was that anger?" The priest hesitated. "Well, it was not there," he admitted. "It arose when I saw what I believed to be misleading teachings." Bank nodded slowly. "And if you were to leave this place and never think of me again, what would happen to that anger?" The priest reflected. "It would fade," he said quietly. "If I never encountered you again, there would be no reason for it to remain." "Exactly," Bank replied softly. "So this anger that feels so powerful now is not your true nature. It appears when certain conditions come together and disappears when they dissolve. But what was present in you before the anger arose, and what will remain after it fades?" The priest fell silent. For the first time, he looked inward with genuine attention. "I am not sure how to describe it," he said slowly. "There is something there, but it has no clear name." Bank smiled. "There is no need to name it. This simple awareness you are touching right now, this presence that existed before your anger and will remain after it, this is what I call the unborn mind." He paused, allowing the words to settle like snow. "It is not something you must achieve through effort or study. You are already living from it even in this moment." The priest's posture softened. The sharpness in his voice faded, replaced by quiet recognition. His anger still existed, yet it was now held within a wider space of understanding. "This mind," Bank continued, "is not created and cannot be destroyed. It is not sacred or ordinary, not Buddhist or non-Buddhist. It is the awareness that allows all experience to appear. You do not need to grasp it intellectually. You do not need to reach it. You are already within it." The priest bowed deeply. No longer a disruptor, but a human being touched by the recognition of his own nature. Ancient wisdom teaches that hatred cannot be ended by hatred, but only by understanding and compassion. Bank's response transformed conflict into insight, not through argument, but through gentle clarity. Why do we become so easily trapped in reactive emotions? Zen teachings explain that we habitually identify with thoughts and feelings, believing that temporary states define who we are. When anger arises, we say, "I am angry," instead of recognizing that anger is simply appearing in awareness. This small shift changes everything. It reveals that emotions are visitors, not owners of the mind. Bank's questioning helped the priest see the impermanence of his feelings. Emotions arise and pass, yet awareness remains untouched, like the sky behind moving clouds. Throughout your day, you may notice moments when anger, jealousy, or anxiety appear. In each case, these experiences arise within awareness, but awareness itself remains unchanged. The priest's discovery of not knowing reflects the beginner's mind again, the open, curious awareness that exists before concepts. This not knowing is not ignorance, but a deeper form of understanding. Your ordinary mind, just as it is already the way. You do not need special states to access it. It is the very awareness through which you are listening now. When we meet aggression with aggression, conflict grows. When we meet it with spacious awareness, healing becomes possible. Tonight, as thoughts and emotions drift through your mind, can you notice the space in which they appear? Can you sense the quiet presence that remains unchanged whether your mind is calm or restless? This presence is the unborn mind that Bank pointed toward. It has never left you. And now, let us turn toward another story, one that reveals how perfection hides within imperfection. In an ancient temple where Master Dogen taught the quiet art of simply sitting, morning meditation was a sacred ritual. Monks sat in orderly rows, backs straight, breath slow, silence deep. Among them sat a young monk named Jishin. His body ached. His legs were numb. His mind wandered endlessly despite his effort to concentrate. Every few moments he shifted, trying to escape discomfort. His face reflected the strain of trying to match an ideal image of perfect meditation. During a short break, he approached Master Dogen with embarrassment. "Master," he whispered, "I feel like I am failing. My body hurts. My mind is restless. No matter how hard I try, I cannot sit correctly. Am I hopeless?" Dogen looked at him with gentle understanding. "Show me," he said quietly. "Show me how you sit incorrectly." Surprised, Jishin demonstrated his tense posture and restless movements. His entire being expressed conflict between expectation and reality. Dogen observed him carefully, then smiled. "Excellent," he said. "Now continue to sit incorrectly with complete dedication. Do not try to fix anything. Do not try to improve. Simply commit fully to this imperfect sitting." Jishin was confused. How can incorrect sitting be good? Should I not try to sit properly? Dogen replied softly, "You are fighting your experience. You have created an image of correct sitting and are struggling to reach it. This struggle is the real obstacle. Your pain, your thoughts, your restlessness, this is your meditation right now. Do not add judgment to what already exists." Jishin returned to his cushion and attempted to accept his discomfort. Yet he found himself trying to accept correctly, adding another layer of effort. Seeing this, Dogen approached again. "Now you are trying to accept properly," he said gently. "Can you fail at acceptance with complete sincerity?" Suddenly, Jishin laughed quietly. He saw the endless loop he had created. Every attempt to do something correctly produced more effort and tension. In that moment, something shifted. Exactly, Dogen said softly. Meditation is not about sitting correctly or incorrectly. It is simply sitting without the extra burden of judgment. Your struggle is perfect struggle. Your peace is perfect peace. Your confusion is perfect confusion. From that day on, Jishin's practice became effortless. Not because he learned to sit perfectly, but because he stopped fighting what was already happening. He discovered that the perfection he sought had always been present. We often create ideals of how life should feel, how spirituality should look, how we should behave. When reality fails to match these images, we add resistance and suffering. Yet the problem is not what happens. It is our relationship to what happens. True acceptance does not mean giving up on growth. It means meeting this moment without forcing it to change. Paradoxically, when we stop forcing, natural transformation begins. How much energy do you spend trying to feel different from how you feel now? How often does striving for peace create tension instead? When seeking stops, finding begins. Tonight, as you drift toward sleep, can you allow your experience to be exactly as it is? If your body is tense, let it be tense. If your mind is active, let it be active. What happens when you stop trying to change this moment and simply rest within it? The way is not somewhere else. It is here, in the quiet heart of this breath. And now, let us continue our journey with a story about learning to trust the current of life. Deep within a crystal-clear river, where water moved like a slow and luminous breath, there lived a community of small beings. Above them, the current flowed endlessly, carrying whispers from distant mountains and unseen seas. Along the quiet bed of the river, beings of every kind had made their home. Young and old, strong and fragile, wealthy and humble, all lived close to the sandy floor where the water flowed above them in endless motion. Each one held tightly to stones, roots, and branches, as if their very existence depended on never letting go. For countless seasons, holding on had been their way of survival. From the moment they were born, they were taught to wrap their limbs around whatever they could grasp. Do not release, the elders warned gently. The current is unpredictable. It will carry you to places you cannot imagine. Safety is found in staying exactly where you are. Yet among them lived a small creature whose heart grew tired of constant gripping. Day after day, he watched the current glide overhead with quiet elegance. While others complained about the effort required to stay anchored, he wondered what it might feel like to move with that mysterious flow. One morning he spoke softly but firmly. I am weary of holding on. Though I cannot see where the current leads, I feel that it knows its own path. If I continue clinging, I may never truly live. So I choose to release and allow the river to carry me. The others cried out in alarm. Foolish one, they said. If you let go, the current will throw you against the rocks. You will be broken long before boredom ever harms you. But the small creature had already made his choice. He looked once more at his companions, then slowly opened his grip. At once, the current seized him. He was spun and hurled across the rocky bottom, his body striking stone after stone. Pain surged through him in ways he had never known while clinging to safety. Yet something unexpected began to unfold. As he stopped reaching for new anchors and surrendered fully to the flow, the current gradually lifted him away from the dangerous floor. The tumbling eased. The rocks could no longer touch him. Now he moved with the river itself. No longer fighting its direction, he became part of its rhythm. Far downstream, other creatures watched in astonishment. Before them moved one of their own, yet he seemed to glide through the water with effortless grace. "Look," they cried. "A miracle! One like us, yet he flies. Surely he is a savior sent to rescue us." The flowing creature heard their voices and felt gentle compassion. "I am no savior," he called back. "The river wishes to lift us all. If only we dare to release our grip. Our true work is not clinging to the bottom, but trusting the journey." But the creatures shouted even louder, praising him as a miracle. At the same time, they tightened their hold on stones and roots. When he disappeared around a bend, they began to weave stories about the wondrous being who had once passed through their world. Ancient wisdom reminds us that we lose only what we cling to. This paradox lies at the heart of human experience. We grasp tightly for security, believing that control will protect us. Yet in clinging, we often create the very suffering we hope to avoid. Why do we fear the current when it offers to carry us toward new possibilities? From childhood, we learn that the familiar is safe and the unknown dangerous. This belief becomes an invisible barrier that limits growth. We also cling to the illusion of control. We try to hold on to relationships, identities, and circumstances as if they could remain unchanged. But life is movement. When we resist this truth, we exhaust ourselves fighting forces far greater than our will. Consider where you may be holding on too tightly. Perhaps it is a relationship that has quietly changed. Perhaps a path that once inspired you now feels heavy. Perhaps an image of yourself that no longer reflects who you are becoming. The current of change will flow whether we resist it or not. Our choice is whether to struggle against it or discover the quiet grace of surrender. Water does not fight the mountain. It finds its way around it. When we move with life instead of against it, we discover an ease that force can never produce. Tonight, as you rest within the stillness, what might you be ready to release? A worry about tomorrow, a memory of yesterday, a story about yourself that has grown too small. Can you feel the gentle current of this moment and trust its direction? In releasing, we often discover that the current we feared is the very force carrying us home. And now, as our journey continues, let us turn toward another story, one that transforms our understanding of suffering. This is the story of the salt and the lake. In a quiet monastery surrounded by rolling hills, an aging master lived with his students. Among them was a young apprentice whose heart felt heavy with constant complaint. Each day, he approached the master with new frustrations. "Why is life so difficult?" he asked. "My meditation is disturbed by noise. My body aches on the hard floor. When will this suffering end?" The master listened patiently, but he sensed that words alone could not shift his student's understanding. One morning, as sunlight poured through the simple hall, the master spoke gently. "My friend," he said, "bring me a handful of salt." The apprentice obeyed, returning with white crystals resting in his palms. The master placed a small glass of water before him. "Put the salt into this glass and drink it." The young man hesitated. "That seems like too much salt for such a small glass." "Trust," the master replied softly. The apprentice poured the salt into the water and drank. His face tightened as bitterness filled his mouth. "How does it taste?" the master asked. "Awful," the apprentice replied. Overwhelmingly bitter. The master nodded. Now bring the salt again and follow me. Together they walked in silence until they reached a vast mountain lake. The water lay still, reflecting sky and clouds with quiet clarity. Now, the master said, place the salt into the lake. The apprentice scattered the crystals across the surface. They dissolved instantly, leaving no trace. Drink from the lake, the master said. The young man cupped the water and drank. It was fresh, cool, and pure. How does it taste now? The master asked. Clear, the apprentice said in surprise. I taste no salt. The master sat beside him and spoke gently. The pain of life is like salt. It is neither more nor less than it is. But the bitterness we feel depends on the size of the vessel that holds it. He paused, letting the words settle. When pain comes, you cannot always change it, but you can choose how wide your awareness becomes. You can be a small glass where every grain of salt overwhelms you, or you can become a vast lake where the same salt dissolves into something larger. Then he smiled softly. Do not remain a glass. Become a lake. Ancient teachings remind us that pain is inevitable, but suffering is shaped by our response. We cannot remove all difficulties from life, yet we can transform our relationship with them. Our awareness is not fixed. It can shrink into narrow focus where every discomfort feels enormous. Or it can expand into spacious presence where challenges become manageable. Why do we often choose to be the glass? Because the mind tends to fixate on discomfort. Because we weave stories around pain, making it heavier than it needs to be. Because we compare reality with imagined ideals of how life should be. The lake perspective does not deny pain. It simply refuses to multiply it. When awareness expands, creativity and compassion arise naturally. Meditation opens space. Gratitude reveals hidden beauty. Service reminds us that our struggles are shared by many. Tonight, as you reflect on your own challenges, can you sense the difference between being a glass and being a lake? What happens when your awareness widens beyond the intensity of a single difficulty? Clarity is not the absence of salt. It is the spaciousness to hold it. And now, let us continue with another story, one about acceptance and quiet contentment. Along a dusty mountain road where wildflowers bloomed among stones, a tired traveler encountered a shepherd tending his flock. The sky above shifted between sunlight and gathering clouds, uncertain of what it would bring. The shepherd sat calmly on a rock, watching his sheep graze. His face carried the ease of one who had spent many seasons listening to wind and earth. "Good morning," the traveler called. "What kind of weather do you think we will have today?" The shepherd smiled gently. "The kind of weather I like," he replied. The traveler paused, confused. "How can you be so sure?" The shepherd looked toward the moving sky and spoke softly. "I learned long ago that I cannot always receive what I desire, so I learned to welcome whatever arrives. That is why I am certain I will like today's weather." The traveler stood quietly as the simplicity of the answer settled into his heart. True contentment does not come from controlling the world, but from transforming our relationship with it. Why do we exhaust ourselves trying to arrange life according to our preferences? Why do we resist what cannot be changed instead of learning to meet it with openness? The shepherd embodies deep acceptance, not resignation, but wisdom. When we fight reality, we create inner conflict. When we align with what is, we discover peace. Think of how much energy is spent resisting traffic, weather, people, and events beyond our control. Each resistance tightens the mind and narrows the heart. Acceptance does not mean abandoning hopes or goals. It means holding them lightly without making our peace dependent on their fulfillment. The Great Way is not difficult for those who are free from rigid preferences. Look gently at your own patterns of resistance. How often do you believe happiness will come only when circumstances change? Attachment is not caring deeply. It is making inner peace conditional on external outcomes. The shepherd cares for his flock, yet his serenity does not depend on the sky. Tonight, as you rest, can you feel the quiet freedom of accepting this moment exactly as it is? The wind may change. The sky may shift. Yet beneath all movement, there is a stillness that never leaves. And in that stillness, you are already home. Tonight, as you gently revisit the moments of this day, both soft and difficult, you may begin to sense a quiet wisdom arising within your own awareness. Perhaps the shepherd's secret is not something distant or mysterious, but something already present in your heart. What if contentment is not waiting somewhere in the future, but quietly breathing here, in this very moment? The Buddha taught that happiness is not determined by what we possess or who we appear to be, but by the way we perceive and interpret life. When we stop demanding that reality obey our expectations, we discover a subtle freedom, the freedom to meet life exactly as it arrives. As our journey through Zen wisdom continues, we encounter a teaching about the foundation of all true learning. It is a story that unfolds in the serene receiving room of a Zen master's monastery, where a young scholar arrives in search of understanding. Afternoon light drifts softly through translucent paper screens as the seeker approaches the master's dwelling. For many years he has devoted himself to study, collecting knowledge, memorizing scriptures, analyzing spiritual theories, and debating philosophical ideas with others who share his passion for understanding. His mind is filled with concepts of awakening, quotations from sacred texts, and intricate interpretations of ancient teachings. Confident in his preparation, he believes he is ready for the highest instructions. The Zen master welcomes him with quiet warmth and invites him to sit upon a simple cushion beside a low wooden table. Without speaking of enlightenment or doctrine, the master begins to prepare tea. His movements are slow and deliberate, each gesture infused with complete presence. He arranges the cups, measures the leaves, and pours the hot water with effortless grace. The young scholar watches with subtle impatience. He has come to discuss profound spiritual matters, not to observe ordinary rituals. Surely someone of his intellectual depth deserves something more extraordinary than watching an old man make tea. The master places a delicate cup before his guest and begins to pour. The golden liquid rises to the rim, yet the master continues pouring. The tea spills over the edge, flows onto the saucer, drips across the table, and begins to fall to the floor. Still, the master does not stop. Unable to remain silent, the scholar finally speaks. "Master, the cup is full. It cannot hold any more." The Zen master gently sets down the teapot and meets the young man's gaze. "Yes," he says softly, "your mind is like this cup. It is already full. How can I teach you anything new when there is no space within you? First, empty your cup. Then learning can begin." The Buddha observed that only an empty vessel can receive fresh water. From this story arises the essence of beginner's mind, the openness that makes genuine understanding possible. Why is it so difficult to remain open to new insight? Buddhist psychology teaches that accumulated knowledge, opinions, and assumptions can quietly become barriers to direct experience. When we approach life believing we already understand it, we meet reality through the filter of yesterday's ideas instead of encountering it freshly. Often this mental fullness hides beneath subtle forms of certainty. We may consider ourselves humble, yet still carry unconscious expectations about how spiritual practice should unfold, what peace should feel like, or how wisdom should appear. These expectations create a gentle static that clouds perception. The Buddha said, "In the beginner's mind there are many possibilities, but in the expert's mind there are few." Beginner's mind is not ignorance, but courageous openness, the willingness to meet each moment without forcing it to conform to what we already believe. Consider how your own spiritual knowledge might sometimes interfere with direct experience. Perhaps descriptions of mindfulness have shaped expectations that prevent you from recognizing the simple awareness available right now. Perhaps ideas about enlightenment make you overlook the quiet clarity already present within you. The practice of emptying the cup happens moment by moment. Each time we notice ourselves rushing to conclusions or clinging to familiar interpretations, we can pause and ask, "What if I did not already know what this is?" This attitude extends beyond spiritual practice into every aspect of life. What if you approached familiar relationships with fresh eyes? What if your daily work became an exploration rather than a routine? What if you released assumptions about your limitations and discovered new possibilities within yourself? Tonight, as you rest on the threshold of sleep, can you gently empty your mind of the day's judgments and stories? In the quiet that follows, you may discover a deeper form of knowing, one that arises not from thought, but from the heart's direct recognition of truth. Now, let us move into another Zen story, one that reveals the fluid nature of circumstances and the wisdom of suspending judgment. This is the tale of an old farmer and the art of living with uncertainty. In a remote valley surrounded by rolling mountains, an elderly farmer lives with his grown son in a humble farmhouse that has sheltered their family for many generations. Their life is simple but sufficient, sustained by a small garden and their most treasured possession, a strong horse that assists with the heavy labor of farming and travel. One morning, the farmer awakens to discover that the horse has vanished. The gate stands open, and there are no signs of theft. The animal has wandered into the vast wilderness beyond the valley. For a farming family, losing their only horse seems disastrous. News spreads quickly through the village, and neighbors soon arrive to offer sympathy. "How terrible," they say. "What dreadful misfortune! How will you survive without your horse?" The old farmer listens quietly and replies with gentle calm, "How do you know this is bad luck?" The neighbors are bewildered. To them, the situation is clearly unfortunate. Yet the farmer continues his work without visible distress. The next morning, the missing horse returns, followed by several wild horses that have chosen to accompany it back to the farm. The farmer and his son quickly build fences to contain the unexpected herd. Once again, the neighbors rush over, now filled with excitement. "What incredible good fortune!" they exclaim. "You have gained an entire herd. This is wonderful luck." The farmer listens thoughtfully and asks again, "How do you know this is good luck?" Soon after, the farmer's son attempts to train one of the wild horses. The animal resists violently, and the young man is thrown to the ground, breaking his leg. The neighbors return, shaking their heads in sorrow. "How terrible," they lament. "Your poor son. What terrible luck." The farmer cares for his son tenderly and responds with the same quiet words, "How do you know this is bad luck?" Days later, soldiers arrive in the valley to recruit young men for a dangerous war. Most of those taken will never return. When they examine the farmer's son, his injury prevents him from being conscripted. He remains safely at home while others depart. In this unfolding story, fortune and misfortune dissolve into one another like waves merging with the sea. The Buddha taught that events are rarely as simple as they first appear. This story reveals the wisdom of holding our judgments lightly. Why do we rush to label experiences as good or bad when their full meaning has not yet revealed itself? Our minds seek certainty, preferring quick conclusions over the discomfort of not knowing. Yet life unfolds in patterns too complex for immediate interpretation. The farmer's repeated question, "How do you know?" points toward a deeper form of wisdom. It is the recognition that reality is larger than our assumptions. What appears painful today may become a blessing tomorrow. What seems fortunate now may carry unseen challenges. This does not mean we should suppress natural emotions. The farmer felt concern and hope, but he refused to imprison his heart within rigid interpretations. To live with this kind of openness is to cultivate equanimity, the ability to remain present without being enslaved by outcomes. When we learn to rest in uncertainty, wisdom often emerges naturally from the situation itself. Tonight, as you reflect on events you have labeled as fortunate or unfortunate, can you soften those judgments? Perhaps peace arises not from controlling life, but from responding wisely to whatever unfolds. As our journey continues, we encounter a teaching about the immediacy of spiritual states, the realization that heaven and hell are not distant realms, but experiences created in each moment of awareness. A monk traveled across mountains and rivers to visit a renowned master, carrying questions that had troubled his mind for many months. When he finally met the master, he asked with great seriousness, "What is heaven? What is the nature of the highest spiritual realm?" Without speaking, the master lay down on the floor, closed his eyes, and rested in perfect ease. The monk waited, confused. Then he asked, "And what is hell?" Immediately, the master began snoring loudly, filling the hall with disturbance and irritation. Offended, the monk felt insulted and began to leave in anger. At that very moment, the master sat up and said calmly, "That is hell." The Buddha taught that we create our world through our thoughts. Heaven and hell are not distant destinations, but states of consciousness arising here and now. Peace, acceptance, and presence create heaven. Anger, judgment, and resistance create hell. The monk sought metaphysical answers, yet missed the living truth unfolding before him. Tonight, as you rest in the quiet rhythm of breath, you may begin to sense that heaven and hell are not somewhere else. They are gently forming within each thought, each feeling, each moment of awareness. And in this understanding, there is a soft invitation to release struggle, to soften judgment, and to rest more deeply in the calm flow of being. Slowly, gently, you are carried towards stillness. The mind loosens its grip. The heart becomes spacious. And in this quiet unfolding, you begin to drift effortlessly into the peaceful embrace of sleep. When the mind becomes tense, resistant, or filled with judgment, a subtle kind of suffering is born, no matter how favorable the outer world may appear. Throughout each day, we can quietly observe these shifting inner landscapes. A moment of quiet joy while eating a simple meal becomes a taste of heaven. A surge of irritation when someone interrupts our plans becomes a descent into inner turmoil. The gentle beauty of evening light across the horizon brings us back to peace. The restless replay of a painful memory draws us once more into unease. Zen practice invites us to recognize these states as they arise and to understand that we participate in creating them. Rather than believing that life forces heaven or suffering upon us, we begin to see that our responses shape the world we inhabit. In this awareness, we discover a quiet power, the ability to choose presence instead of resistance, softness instead of struggle. This teaching also reveals the immediacy of transformation. We do not need to wait for distant achievements or future revelations to experience the essence of peace. It is already available whenever we rest in simple acceptance of what is. The monk in the earlier story sought wisdom through elaborate explanations, yet missed the direct teaching offered in silence and gesture. True insight often arrives not through concepts, but through lived experience. The most profound truths are not always spoken, they are felt. Our minds frequently wander into imagined futures and remembered pasts, losing touch with the reality unfolding in this moment. The monk's concern with distant realms made him blind to the sacred truth present before him. His anger revealed that his reverence depended on receiving teaching in a familiar form, rather than remaining open to wisdom in unexpected shapes. Tonight, as you notice your thoughts and emotions gently shifting, you may begin to sense when you are creating peace through acceptance, and when you are creating suffering through resistance. What would it feel like to take gentle responsibility for your inner world, regardless of outer circumstances? The Buddha taught that peace is not found outside, but the neighbors are bewildered. To them, the situation is clearly unfortunate. Yet the farmer continues his work without visible distress. The next morning, the missing horse returns, followed by several wild horses that have chosen to accompany it back to the farm. The farmer and his son quickly build fences to contain the unexpected herd. Once again, the neighbors rush over, now filled with excitement. "What incredible good fortune!" they exclaim. "You have gained an entire herd. This is wonderful luck." The farmer listens thoughtfully and asks again, "How do you know this is good luck?" Soon after, the farmer's son attempts to train one of the wild horses. The animal resists violently, and the young man is thrown to the ground, breaking his leg. The neighbors return, shaking their heads in sorrow. "How terrible!" they lament. "Your poor son. What terrible luck!" The farmer cares for his son tenderly and responds with the same quiet words, "How do you know this is bad luck?" Days later, soldiers arrive in the valley to recruit young men for a dangerous war. Most of those taken will never return. When they examine the farmer's son, his injury prevents him from being conscripted. He remains safely at home while others depart. In this unfolding story, fortune and misfortune dissolve into one another like waves merging with the sea. The Buddha taught that events are rarely as simple as they first appear. This story reveals the wisdom of holding our judgments lightly. Why do we rush to label experiences as good or bad when their full meaning has not yet revealed itself? Our minds seek certainty, preferring quick conclusions over the discomfort of not knowing. Yet life unfolds in patterns too complex for immediate interpretation. The farmer's repeated question, "How do you know?" points toward a deeper form of wisdom. It is the recognition that reality is larger than our assumptions. What appears painful today may become a blessing tomorrow. What seems fortunate now may carry unseen challenges. This does not mean we should suppress natural emotions. The farmer felt concern and hope, but he refused to imprison his heart within rigid interpretations. To live with this kind of openness is to cultivate equanimity, the ability to remain present without being enslaved by outcomes. When we learn to rest in uncertainty, wisdom often emerges naturally from the situation itself. Tonight, as you reflect on events you have labeled as fortunate or unfortunate, can you soften those judgments? Perhaps peace arises not from controlling life, but from responding wisely to whatever unfolds. As our journey continues, we encounter a teaching about the immediacy of spiritual states, the realization that heaven and hell are not distant realms, but experiences created in each moment of awareness. A monk traveled across mountains and rivers to visit a renowned master, carrying questions that had troubled his mind for many months. When he finally met the master, he asked with great seriousness, "What is heaven? What is the nature of the highest spiritual realm?" Without speaking, the master lay down on the floor, closed his eyes, and rested in perfect ease. The monk waited, confused. Then he asked, "And what is hell?" Immediately, the master began snoring loudly, filling the hall with disturbance and irritation. Offended, the monk felt insulted and began to leave in anger. At that very moment, the master sat up and said calmly, "That is hell." The Buddha taught that we create our world through our thoughts. Heaven and hell are not distant destinations, but states of consciousness arising here and now. Peace, acceptance, and presence create heaven. Anger, judgment, and resistance create hell. The monk sought metaphysical answers, yet missed the living truth unfolding before him. Tonight, as you rest in the quiet rhythm of breath, you may begin to sense that heaven and hell are not somewhere else. They are gently forming within each thought, each feeling, each moment of awareness. And in this understanding, there is a soft invitation to release struggle, to soften judgment, and to rest more deeply in the calm flow of being. Slowly, gently, you are carried towards stillness. The mind loosens its grip. The heart becomes spacious. And in this quiet unfolding, you begin to drift effortlessly into the peaceful embrace of sleep. When the mind becomes tense, resistant, or filled with judgment, a subtle kind of suffering is born, no matter how favorable the outer world may appear. Throughout each day, we can quietly observe these shifting inner landscapes. A moment of quiet joy while eating a simple meal becomes a taste of heaven. A surge of irritation when someone interrupts our plans becomes a descent into inner turmoil. The gentle beauty of evening light across the horizon brings us back to peace. The restless replay of a painful memory draws us once more into unease. Zen practice invites us to recognize these states as they arise and to understand that we participate in creating them. Rather than believing that life forces heaven or suffering upon us, we begin to see that our responses shape the world we inhabit. In this awareness, we discover a quiet power, the ability to choose presence instead of resistance, softness instead of struggle. This teaching also reveals the immediacy of transformation. We do not need to wait for distant achievements or future revelations to experience the essence of peace. It is already available whenever we rest in simple acceptance of what is. The monk in the earlier story sought wisdom through elaborate explanations, yet missed the direct teaching offered in silence and gesture. True insight often arrives not through concepts, but through lived experience. The most profound truths are not always spoken, they are felt. Our minds frequently wander into imagined futures and remembered pasts, losing touch with the reality unfolding in this moment. The monk's concern with distant realms made him blind to the sacred truth present before him. His anger revealed that his reverence depended on receiving teaching in a familiar form, rather than remaining open to wisdom in unexpected shapes. Tonight, as you notice your thoughts and emotions gently shifting, you may begin to sense when you are creating peace through acceptance, and when you are creating suffering through resistance. What would it feel like to take gentle responsibility for your inner world, regardless of outer circumstances? The Buddha taught that peace is not found outside, but discovered within. Heaven is not a reward granted later, but the natural expression of a mind that has ceased to struggle with reality. Now, let us move into another story, one that reveals the invisible burdens we carry through life. This is the tale of the empty backpack. In a quiet monastery garden, where morning dew shimmered upon winding paths, a young seeker approached his teacher with a question heavy in his heart. His eyes reflected both longing and confusion as he bowed with respect. "Master," he said softly, "why do I feel trapped by my past? Why do memories follow me wherever I go? Why can I not move beyond them?" The teacher looked at him with gentle compassion and gestured toward a labyrinth of translucent silk panels glowing in the filtered sunlight. Handing him a leather backpack, the teacher said, "Walk through the maze while carrying this. It will help you remain focused. But be careful, it is heavy." The young man took the backpack, surprised by how ordinary it appeared. Yet the moment it touched his shoulders, he felt an immense weight pressing him forward. Inside the maze, he encountered countless barriers. Through the shimmering walls, he could see other seekers moving through their own paths. Every direction seemed blocked. Exhausted, he sat down in frustration. Gradually, he continued forward, sometimes discovering openings, sometimes meeting dead ends. With each step, the burden grew heavier, cutting into his shoulders. Curious and desperate, he removed the backpack and looked inside. It was completely empty. Yet when he lifted it again, the weight remained. As he placed it back on his shoulders, a quiet voice whispered, "Look within yourself, for the weight is born there." Suddenly, memories surged through his awareness. Old wounds, forgotten resentments, moments of shame and sorrow. As he revisited them, the backpack grew heavier. Then understanding dawned. "I am the weight," he whispered. "I carry what troubles me." With this realization, he began to forgive. "I release you," he said softly, again and again. With each act of forgiveness, the burden lightened. New paths opened before him, and the maze seemed less threatening. As warmth filled his heart, the backpack grew lighter still. Eventually, he felt weightless. Sitting in quiet meditation, he realized that he had been both the obstacle and the way forward. In that moment, his feet lifted from the ground, and he rose above the labyrinth, seeing clearly how others remained bound by invisible burdens of their own making. When he returned to his teacher, his face glowed with insight. The teacher smiled gently and walked away without speaking. The Buddha taught that holding on to anger is like grasping a burning coal. It is we who are burned. The empty backpack reminds us that our suffering is often self-created. The past itself does not imprison us. our relationship to it does. We cling to pain because it has become familiar, because it shapes our identity, or because we misunderstand forgiveness. Yet every unresolved memory becomes an unseen weight upon our shoulders. Tonight, as you prepare for rest, you may gently ask yourself what burdens you are carrying. Are they still serving your growth, or is it time to lay them down? The path of freedom begins with kindness toward oneself and the courage to release what no longer needs to be held. Now, let us turn to another story, one that reveals a fundamental truth of existence. This is the teaching of the meditation student and the quiet reminder of impermanence. A young student had been practicing meditation with sincere dedication. Each day, he sat quietly following the rhythm of his breath. Some days felt calm and effortless. Other days felt restless and difficult. One morning, his mind was overwhelmed by distraction. His body felt tense, his thoughts scattered, his patience thin. Feeling defeated, he sought out his teacher. He found the elderly monk tending a small garden in the early light. Pouring out his frustrations, the student said, "My meditation is terrible. I cannot focus. Everything feels wrong." The teacher listened quietly and replied with simple calm, "It will pass." Then he returned to his gardening. Days later, the student's practice transformed. Peace replaced chaos, clarity replaced confusion. Filled with joy, he returned to his teacher. "My meditation is wonderful," he exclaimed. "I feel alive and peaceful beyond words." The teacher looked at him with the same gentle expression and said again, "It will pass." In that moment, the student understood. The teacher was not speaking only about meditation, but about life itself. Everything changes. Joy and sorrow, clarity and confusion, success and failure, all arise and fade like waves upon the ocean. The Buddha taught that impermanence lies at the heart of existence. Our suffering often comes from clinging to what we wish would last and resisting what we wish would disappear. Yet beneath the shifting surface of experience, there is a deeper stillness, the awareness in which all experiences arise and dissolve. Tonight, as you rest within this gentle rhythm of change, you may begin to sense that nothing needs to be grasped and nothing needs to be pushed away. Each moment arrives, stays for a while, and quietly departs. And in this understanding, the heart softens, the mind relaxes, and the body slowly drifts toward sleep. Breath by breath, thought by thought, you are carried into quietness. There is nothing to hold, nothing to resist, only the soft unfolding of being. The moment doubt entered his mind, the world around him seemed to tremble. The beautiful woman before him did not disappear, but her presence felt suddenly fragile, as if woven from mist rather than flesh and bone. "This cannot be real," he whispered, his voice trembling not with fear, but with disbelief. "How could someone like me deserve such fortune?" As soon as the thought formed, the house behind him began to fade. Its bright walls softened into pale shadows. The gardens lost their color. The servants slowly dissolved into the air, like reflections disappearing from still water. Alarmed, the man tried to hold on to what he had created. "Wait," he cried. "I didn't mean that. I want this life. I want this happiness." But the wishing tree did not respond to his words. It responded only to the deeper currents of his mind. Another thought arose, quieter but more powerful than the first. What if this is all an illusion? The moment he believed it, everything vanished. The woman, the house, the food, the comfort. He found himself once again standing alone in the forest, leaning against the same ordinary tree. A chill ran through his body. He looked at his empty hands and felt an emptiness not only in his palms, but in his heart. In that silence, something subtle began to dawn within him. He realized that the tree had never been the source of his miracles. It had merely reflected the hidden forces of his own mind. When his mind was filled with longing, abundance appeared. When his mind was filled with doubt, everything dissolved. The Buddha taught that the world we experience is shaped by the mind that perceives it. Just as a clear lake reflects the sky, the mind reflects its own beliefs. The man slowly sat down beneath the tree. For the first time, he stopped chasing wishes and stopped resisting fear. He simply watched his thoughts rise and fall, like clouds drifting across a vast, quiet sky. As he breathed gently, he began to understand that the true wishing tree was not outside him. It was within. Tonight, as you rest in stillness, notice how your own thoughts shape your experience. Notice how hope creates light and how doubt creates shadows. You do not need to fight these thoughts. You do not need to force them away. Simply watch them come and go, just as waves move across the surface of the sea. In this gentle awareness, the mind begins to soften. And in that softness, something deeper than wishes begins to awaken. A quiet knowing that peace has never been far from you, and that everything you seek is already held within the silent space of your own awareness. Now let your breath slow. Let your body become heavy. Let your thoughts drift like distant echoes. And as the night carries you further into rest, allow yourself to sink gently into the calm that has always been here. Things like this are not meant for someone like me. This cannot be real. As the words left his lips, the world around him began to soften and fade. The gentle warmth in the woman's eyes disappeared first, followed by the quiet presence of the servants, then the luminous house, and finally the simple meal that had filled his hunger. When the last trace of wonder dissolved into the air, he found himself standing alone once more, leaning against a tree that now appeared ordinary and silent, as if nothing extraordinary had ever happened. He nodded to himself with a familiar sense of certainty. "I knew it," he whispered softly. Turning away, he walked deeper into the forest, his thoughts drifting back to the old rhythms of worry and complaint that had shaped his life for so long. The Buddha reminds us, we are shaped by our thoughts. From our thoughts, our world is born. Within this teaching lies a subtle truth: belief creates, and doubt destroys. Why do we so easily reject the goodness that appears in our lives? Zen wisdom suggests that the human mind is deeply conditioned to trust limitation more than possibility. We become so accustomed to struggle that ease feels unfamiliar, almost threatening. We learn to identify ourselves with difficulty, and when abundance arrives, we quietly push it away. Think of the small moments in your own day. Unexpected kindness, quiet beauty, opportunities that appear without warning. How quickly do you dismiss them as coincidence, illusion, or something that cannot last? Often, without realizing it, we walk away from the very gifts we have been longing for. The wishing tree is a mirror of the mind. It reflects what we believe is possible and what we believe we deserve. When we meet life with openness and trust, doors seem to appear where none existed before. When we meet life with suspicion and self-doubt, those same doors quietly close. The man beneath the tree had access to everything he needed, yet his belief in limitation was stronger than the evidence before his eyes. This is the quiet tragedy of doubt. It convinces us to abandon our own miracles. A Zen teacher once said, "You are complete as you are, and still capable of endless growth." To hold both truths requires a gentle mind. The man could not yet accept that he was worthy of goodness and capable of change at the same time. In everyday life, we encounter many wishing trees. A friendship we hesitate to trust. An opportunity we feel unworthy of. A love we fear will vanish if we embrace it fully. Each time we choose familiar limitation over unfamiliar possibility, we turn away from our own tree of wishes. The Buddha taught us to question deeply, but there is a difference between wisdom and self-denial. Wise questioning opens the mind. Destructive doubt closes it. Zen practice invites us to notice when we reject joy simply because it does not match our old story about who we are. Can we remain open to the possibility that we are more capable, more deserving, more lovable than we have been taught to believe? Tonight, as you reflect quietly on your day, notice moments when you may have stepped away from your own wishing tree. A compliment you brushed aside. A chance you believed was not meant for you. A moment of happiness you feared would disappear. What would it feel like to trust your right to receive life's gifts? The Buddha observed that one flame can light thousands of others without losing its own brightness. Joy does not diminish when it is shared. The magic of the wishing tree is not weakened by granting wishes. It is fulfilled by them. And our capacity to receive life is not reduced by acceptance. It is expanded. Now, let us move gently into another story. A story that reveals the quiet strength of returning to what is real when fear begins to rise. This is the tale of the captured warrior. Long ago, in a time of endless conflict between rival clans, a skilled warrior found himself defeated on the battlefield. As chaos surrounded him and his comrades fell, he was seized by enemy soldiers and taken away from the noise of war. His armor was removed. His weapons were taken. That night, he was thrown into a narrow stone cell. The heavy door closed with a sound that seemed to echo inside his bones. In the darkness, his mind began to race. He imagined the coming day. Interrogation, humiliation, and finally, with each thought his heart beat faster. His breath grew shallow. His body trembled despite the cool air. Sleep felt impossible as his mind replayed visions of suffering again and again. Hours passed. He walked the small space of the cell. He sat against the cold wall. He lay on the straw-covered floor. Nothing eased the storm of fear inside him. Then, from somewhere deep within memory, a quiet voice arose. It was the voice of his Zen teacher. Tomorrow is not real. Only this moment exists. At first, his frightened mind resisted the words. How could tomorrow be unreal when danger seemed so certain? Yet, as he listened more deeply, something began to shift. He noticed his breath. In this moment, he was breathing freely. He felt the straw beneath him, rough yet harmless. He heard the wind outside the prison walls, a sound older than war, older than fear. In this moment, he was not being tortured. In this moment, he was not dying. In this moment, he was simply alive. Slowly, he realized that his suffering had been created not by reality, but by images of a future that did not yet exist. As this understanding settled, a deep calm entered his body. His breath slowed. His heart softened. For the first time since his capture, he smiled. The teacher's wisdom had freed him from a prison far more severe than stone walls, the prison of imagined tomorrow. Before long, the warrior drifted into a quiet, peaceful sleep. The Buddha taught that the only place life truly happens is here and now. Why do we exhaust ourselves with stories about what may come? Zen teaching explains that the mind is designed to protect us, but when imagination replaces reality, it becomes a source of suffering. Look gently at your own experience. How much of your anxiety comes from futures that exist only in thought? Events that have not yet happened, conversations that have not yet occurred, outcomes that remain unknown. The warrior's insight shows us another way. We can acknowledge the future without living inside it. Impermanence reminds us that nothing remains fixed. The future is not written in stone. The warrior could not know what the next day would bring. Neither can we. The Buddha said, "Do not live in the past. Do not dream of the future. Rest the mind in the present moment." This teaching is not an escape from responsibility, but an invitation to return to what is real. When we return to the present, we often discover a quiet strength that fear never revealed. Tonight, as your mind begins to wander toward tomorrow, remember the captured warrior. Ask yourself softly, what is happening right now? Feel your breath. Feel the stillness around you. In this moment, you are safe. In this moment, you are here. And in this awareness lies the key not only to the warrior's freedom, but to your own. Now, let us move gently toward another story. A story about generosity, simplicity, and the quiet realization of what can never be taken away. This is the story of the moon in the window. Master Ryoan chose a life of quiet simplicity that few people could imagine enduring. His small hut on the mountain contained almost nothing that could be called a possession. There were no treasures, no valuables, no objects stored for comfort or security. Only the essentials remained: worn robes, a simple bowl, a few wooden utensils, and a book or two for contemplation. One evening, as the master rested in stillness, a thief approached through the darkness. Seeing the lonely hut, he believed he had discovered an easy opportunity. Moving carefully through the shadows, he slipped inside without making a sound. Inside, he searched slowly and thoroughly. He looked behind walls, beneath cloth, into corners where valuables might be hidden. But everywhere he turned, he found only emptiness. No coins, no jewels, no objects of worth. Standing in the middle of the bare room, the thief felt frustration rise within him. He had risked danger for nothing. There was nothing to take, nothing to carry away, nothing to justify his effort. As he turned to leave in disappointment, a gentle voice emerged from the darkness. "Wait," the master said softly. The thief froze, expecting anger or accusation. Instead, he watched as Master Ryoan slowly rose from his resting place. Without haste, without resentment, the master lifted the old quilt that warmed him during cold mountain nights. He folded it carefully and held it out toward the stunned intruder. "Here," he said quietly, "you have come a long way. You should not leave empty-handed." The thief accepted the quilt in silence, unable to understand such unexpected kindness. He had come to steal, yet he was leaving with a gift. Shame and confusion filled his heart as he disappeared into the night. Standing alone in his doorway, Master Ryoan lifted his eyes to the sky. The moon had risen above the mountains, bathing the world in silver light. Moved by its quiet beauty, he whispered a simple poem. The thief took my blanket, yet he left behind the moon at my window. The Buddha taught that true joy does not diminish when it is shared. This story reveals the difference between what can be taken and what can never be lost. Master Ryoan understood that real wealth does not lie in what we possess, but in the depth of our generosity and the clarity of our awareness. Instead of feeling violated, he felt compassion. Instead of defending his poverty, he transformed it into giving. Why do we so often respond to loss with anger and fear? Because we believe our possessions define our safety and worth. But the Master's response points to another way of living. Objects can be stolen. Beauty cannot. Peace cannot. Awareness cannot. The moon shining through the window belongs to no one, yet it is available to everyone. Material things fade, wear out, and disappear. But the quiet joy of seeing, the capacity to wonder, the ability to feel gratitude, these are treasures no thief can touch. The thief left with cloth that would one day decay. The Master remained with a beauty that would never fade. This story invites us to reflect on our own lives. When something is taken from us, do we focus only on what is lost, or do we remember what still remains within us? True security does not come from accumulation. It arises from inner abundance. When we learn to appreciate without possessing, we discover a form of wealth beyond conditions. Simplicity is often misunderstood as lack. Yet the Master's life reveals that letting go of attachment can open the door to deeper richness. Perhaps the thief sensed this truth as he walked away into the night. Perhaps the unexpected kindness he encountered planted a seed that would grow long after he left the mountain. Compassion has a quiet power. When it appears where anger is expected, it transforms not only the moment, but the heart that receives it. Tonight, as you reflect gently on what you fear losing, ask yourself, which treasures can be taken from you and which can never be touched? The Buddha reminded us that in the end, only three things truly matter: how deeply we have lived, how fully we have loved, and how gracefully we have learned to let go. The moon in the window symbolizes the eternal gifts of life, always present, always free, always beyond possession. Now, let us move quietly into another story. A story that reveals how anger arises and how our minds often create enemies where none exist. This is the story of the empty boat. In the early morning mist, a young boatman guided his small wooden vessel across a wide river. He was known for his skill, but also for his quick temper. The slightest disruption could ignite his anger, and other boatmen often avoided him when his mood darkened. On this particular morning, thick fog covered the water. Visibility was low, and the river seemed endless and silent. As he steered his boat forward, he suddenly saw another vessel drifting toward him. "Turn aside," he shouted into the mist. "You're going to collide with me." But the other boat continued forward without changing course. His voice grew louder. His anger rose. He cursed the unseen pilot for carelessness and stupidity. Moments later, the two boats struck each other with a dull thud. Now burning with rage, the boatman prepared to confront the offender. His fists clenched. His heart raced. But when he looked into the other boat, he saw something that stopped him completely. The boat was empty. There was no pilot, no one to blame, no one to fight. In an instant, his anger vanished. He pushed the empty vessel aside and continued his journey, his mind as calm as the quiet river around him. The Buddha taught that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting another person to suffer. This story reveals how often we direct our anger at empty boats, at assumptions, projections, and imagined intentions. Much of our suffering comes not from what others actually do, but from the stories we create about them. We assume hostility where there is distraction. We assume disrespect where there is misunderstanding. We assume intention where there is only circumstance. How often in daily life do we populate empty boats with imaginary pilots? A driver cuts us off, and we assume selfishness. A colleague seems distant, and we assume rejection. A friend cancels plans, and we assume indifference. Yet behind each action may lie a story we cannot see. Zen teaching invites us to question our assumptions. Are we responding to reality or to the story our minds have created? When anger arises, we can pause and ask, am I reacting to what actually happened or to the meaning I have given it? In meditation, we learn to observe thoughts without clinging to them. Anger appears, then it fades. The Buddha said that we are not punished for our anger, but by our anger. When we stop fighting empty boats, we discover that peace has been present all along. Now, as your mind begins to quiet, allow the images of river, mist, moonlight, and silence to soften your thoughts. And let us move gently toward the next story, a story about the quiet futility of trying to escape parts of ourselves. This is the story of the man who tried to escape his own shadow. Long ago, there lived a man who felt a strange discomfort with his own existence. Each morning, when he stepped outside and saw his shadow stretching across the ground, a quiet unease rose within him. The dark shape followed him everywhere, repeating every gesture, mirroring every movement. It felt to him like a silent reminder that he could not escape himself. When he walked across dust or sand, he would turn around and see his footprints trailing behind him. Each mark felt like proof of where he had been, evidence of a life he wished he could erase. These things disturb me, he thought one day, watching his shadow move along the wall. My shadow follows me wherever I go, and my footprints reveal every step I take. If only I could leave them behind completely. Slowly, an idea formed in his mind. If he could run fast enough, perhaps he could outrun his shadow. If he moved quickly enough, maybe his footprints would disappear. Before sunrise the next morning, he began to run. At first, he felt hopeful. But with every step he took, a new footprint appeared behind him, and his shadow remained beside him, moving effortlessly, never falling behind. I must go faster, he told himself. So he ran harder. His breath grew shallow. His heart beat loudly in his chest. Sweat covered his face as he pushed his body beyond its limits. Yet nothing changed. The faster he ran, the more footprints he created. The harder he tried to escape, the closer his shadow seemed to follow. Hour after hour, he continued his desperate flight. His legs trembled. His lungs burned. But he could not stop, because he believed stopping meant defeat. At last, exhausted beyond measure, he collapsed on the path. There, surrounded by his shadow and his footprints, he took his final breath. What he never understood was how simple the answer had always been. If he had stepped beneath the shade of a tree, his shadow would have disappeared. If he had sat quietly in stillness, no new footprints would have formed. The Buddha taught that each being deserves compassion, especially from oneself. This story reveals how often we struggle against parts of ourselves instead of learning to meet them with understanding. The shadow represents the emotions and qualities we try to reject: fear, anger, sadness, insecurity, and regret. The footprints represent the traces of our past, the marks left by our choices and experiences. So much of our life is spent running from these things. We try to escape anxiety by staying endlessly busy, only to create more tension. We try to avoid loneliness by filling every moment with noise, never allowing silence to heal us. We try to outrun past mistakes by working harder, proving ourselves, or pretending we are someone else. Why do we believe that external movement can solve internal conflict? The mind tells us that if we change our surroundings enough, we will finally feel free. But like the running man, we often discover that the more we run, the heavier our burdens become. Think gently about your own shadows. Perhaps you are trying to escape feelings of inadequacy by pushing yourself beyond exhaustion. Perhaps you are avoiding grief by distracting yourself from the quiet spaces where healing begins. Perhaps you are running from memories that simply want to be understood. Zen teaching offers a different way. Instead of running from the shadow, step into the shade. Instead of trying to erase the footprints, learn to walk with awareness. Often, the very things we resist contain the doorway to peace. Zen master Suzuki Roshi said that we are already complete, yet always growing. This is not contradiction, but balance. We can accept ourselves fully while gently evolving, not from self-rejection, but from kindness. The shade of the tree symbolizes the refuge we find when we stop fleeing from ourselves. When we turn toward difficult emotions with softness rather than resistance, they often dissolve naturally. When we release the urgency to prove or escape, we create space for rest and insight. The Buddha reminded us that the path is not somewhere far away. It lives in the heart. Freedom does not come from avoiding our shadows, but from walking through them with awareness. When we meet our inner struggles with compassion, they lose their power to chase us. Tonight, as your body begins to relax, notice if there are parts of yourself you have been running from. Can you imagine pausing, even for a moment, beneath the shade of acceptance? Can you allow yourself to be still without needing to change anything? In stillness, no new footprints are formed. In gentleness, the shadow loses its weight. The Buddha taught that peace is not something to be chased. It is something to be remembered. As the night deepens, feel how calmness slowly rises within you, not as something you must earn, but as something that was always present beneath the noise of thought. The wisdom these stories awaken does not live in distant teachings. It lives quietly within your own awareness, waiting patiently to be noticed. The sun, the moon, and the truth cannot remain hidden forever. And the truth is this: the peace you seek has never been far from you. Each story you have heard tonight has opened a different door, yet all doors lead to the same place. Not to something new, but to something familiar. Not to something distant, but to something deeply intimate. Even when tomorrow brings movement, noise, and responsibility, the understanding you touch tonight will remain quietly within you, like a gentle presence that never leaves. Now, allow your breath to slow even more. Feel your muscles soften. Let your thoughts drift like clouds across a silent sky. The deepest truths are not hidden in complex ideas. They are found in the simple miracle of this moment, in breathing, in listening, in being. Tonight, you have remembered what you already knew, that everything you need for peace is already here. And as you drift toward rest, Carry with you the quiet knowing that no matter what changes around you, there is a still center within you that nothing can disturb. Rest now. Let the mind grow quiet. Let the heart grow light. And in this gentle silence, allow yourself to come home to yourself. Our next story gently reveals what happens when we stop trying to appear holy and begin to live honestly. In the old city of Kyoto, Master Iku walked slowly through narrow streets filled with ordinary life. Vendors called out to passers-by. Children laughed and chased one another through dusty alleys. The air carried the scent of cooking rice and distant bells. The city was imperfect, noisy, and alive. As he passed a group of monks gathered near a temple gate, he heard their voices rising in serious debate. They spoke with certainty and pride, measuring spiritual progress by strict rules and careful appearances. One who truly practices eats only once a day, one monk declared. To eat more is to surrender to desire, another added. And one must avoid distractions like flowers and music, said a third. Only by rejecting worldly beauty can the mind become pure. The monks nodded solemnly, refining their arguments as though truth could be shaped by words. Master Iku listened quietly for a moment. Then, without explanation, he turned away and stepped into a small tavern nearby. Inside, farmers sat at rough wooden tables, their clothes stained with earth, their hands shaped by honest labor. They laughed softly, sharing simple food and stories of fields, weather, and harvest. Seeing Iku enter, the monks rushed after him in alarm. "Master," they exclaimed, their voices tense with shock. "How can you come to such a place? We are monks. This is not fitting for someone of your standing." Iku had already taken a seat among the farmers. He lifted a humble cup of rice wine and listened to their voices with calm attention. Looking at the monks, his eyes shone with quiet humor. "You are correct," he said gently. "You're monks. But today, I forgot to be one." The monks stood speechless. One of them stepped forward nervously. "But Master," he said, "what of your vows? What of your reputation? People look to you as a spiritual example." Iku smiled softly. "My vow is to awaken in each moment," he replied. "As for my reputation, it rests peacefully without my care." He turned back toward the farmers. "These people understand the world without theory," he said quietly. "They know when rice is ready by its color and weight. They feel the coming rain before clouds appear. They discover the Buddha in tired muscles, muddy hands, and the quiet joy of feeding others." The monks listened, uncertain. Later that evening, as they walked back toward the monastery, a young monk approached Iku with hesitation. "Master," he asked softly, "were you teaching us something in the tavern?" Iku paused and looked at him with kindness. "Only if you were ready to learn," he said. The deeper meaning of this story is simple and profound. Authenticity carries more spiritual power than any performance of holiness. So often, we fall into the trap of trying to appear awakened rather than simply being awake. We become attached to spiritual identities, the image of being wise, disciplined, or enlightened. Sometimes this attachment becomes stronger than ordinary ego, because it hides behind the mask of virtue. We also confuse form with essence. Practices, rituals, and rules are meant to support inner clarity. Yet we begin to believe that perfect form itself creates wisdom. In this way, spirituality becomes something to collect rather than something to realize. And we divide life into sacred and ordinary. We imagine that truth lives only in temples and meditation halls, while everyday life is something to escape. But Zen teaches that the Buddha nature flows through everything equally, through silence and sound, through meditation and laughter, through temples and taverns. Iku's forgetting to be a monk was not rebellion. It was freedom. He discovered deeper truth in human connection than in abstract arguments. He showed that genuine presence is more sacred than any spiritual costume. Now, gently consider your own life. Do you sometimes try to appear calm instead of truly feeling? Do you measure your progress in meditation or judge yourself for not being spiritual enough? Do you feel subtle pride in your practice or quiet anxiety about losing your image? These are signs that the spiritual ego has quietly entered the heart. A Zen teacher once said that awakening is not something we achieve, but something we stop pretending to reach. When we release the need to become perfect, we begin to touch something real. Iku did not chase holiness. He simply responded honestly to each moment. The farmers in the story represent grounded awareness. They know truth not through theory, but through experience. They understand life through seasons, soil, and effort. The Buddha was not called the one who spoke about awakening. He was called the one who awakened. He taught that truth must be known directly, not inherited through words. Tonight, as you slowly relax into stillness, ask yourself gently, what would it feel like to forget being spiritual for a moment? What would it feel like to stop improving, fixing, and judging yourself? What would it feel like to simply be here? Peace does not come from performance. It comes from presence. And in this presence, the heart begins to soften. Now, let us turn to another story, a story that reveals how ultimate truth often hides within the simplest things. High in the quiet mountains, Master Ryoan lived in a small hut that barely sheltered him from wind and rain. The villagers below called him a fool because his actions seemed strange and impractical. When hungry children came to his door, he gave them his own food. When he felt inspired, he wrote poems on fallen leaves and watched the wind carry them away, never seeking recognition. One spring morning, as blossoms covered the mountainside with pale light, Ryoan knelt in his garden behind the hut. With slow and careful hands, he placed seeds into the soil. For each seed, he whispered a quiet blessing. A learned priest, curious about this eccentric hermit, climbed the mountain to test his wisdom. He found Ryoan humming softly, patting the earth like a child at play. "Master Ryoan," the priest said proudly, "I have studied sacred texts for decades. I have debated scholars and memorized teachings. Tell me the true meaning of existence." Ryoan continued planting seeds. "I plant in hope," he said gently, "but I do not know which seeds will grow." The priest frowned. "I am asking about life and death, not gardening." Ryoan smiled faintly. "You ask about existence," he said. "But existence is not a question. It unfolds like these seeds according to its nature." He touched the soil with tenderness. "Some seeds will become flowers. Some will feed birds. Some will return to the earth. All outcomes are complete, and none are necessary." The priest felt frustration rise within him. "Surely there must be an ultimate truth," he insisted. "What is the deepest wisdom you have found?" Ryoan placed a single seed in his palm and held it out. "Plant this," he said quietly. "But I have no time for such trivial tasks," the priest replied. "I have important spiritual work to do." Ryoan's eyes sparkled with gentle humor. "Then you have already answered your question," he said. "The truth you seek is not more important than this seed in your hand." The priest left convinced that Ryoan was foolish. Yet years later, when his mind became tangled in complex ideas, he remembered the feeling of that small seed resting in his palm. And in that memory, his questions dissolved like mist in the morning sun. From this story emerges a quiet realization. Enlightenment is not a grand achievement, but a return to simplicity. We complicate the path because we fear the ordinary. We believe wisdom must be difficult, rare, and extraordinary. But the miracle is already here, in breath, in touch, in the present moment. The priest represents the mind that values theory over experience. He knows many teachings, yet cannot recognize truth in the act of planting seeds. Ryoan's foolishness is the wisdom of beginner's mind, a mind that meets each moment without expectation. The seed in his palm is the present moment itself. Each moment holds infinite possibility, but only if we are willing to be here. How often do you postpone peace until some future achievement? How often do you believe that one day, when you understand more, you will finally be calm? Yet peace is already present in the simple rhythm of breathing. A Zen teacher once said that in a beginner's mind, there are countless possibilities. In an expert's mind, there are very few. Ryoan lived with this openness. He found wonder in ordinary acts, freedom in purposelessness, and joy in giving without expectation. When we act not to achieve, but simply to be, the ordinary becomes sacred. Washing dishes becomes meditation. Walking becomes prayer. Planting seeds becomes communion with life. Tonight, as you rest, notice the simple truths around you. Feel the weight of your blanket. Listen to the quiet rhythm of your breath. Sense the gentle healing of your body as it prepares for sleep. What if the deepest wisdom you seek is already here, hidden within this ordinary moment? Peace is not somewhere else. It is within. And as we continue our journey into Zen wisdom, another story begins to unfold, a story about the nature of the original mind. In a temple filled with incense and silence, Master Bank sat before a gathered crowd, speaking softly of the unborn Buddha mind. Suddenly, a loud voice shattered the calm. A visiting priest entered the hall, criticizing the teaching and proclaiming his own doctrine. The listeners shifted uneasily, but Master Bank remained still, his face untouched by anger. Instead, he smiled gently. "Welcome," he said. "Please come forward so we may hear you clearly." The priest, expecting resistance, felt confusion arise within him. "You think you are clever," he said defensively. "You are trying to humiliate me." Bank's voice remained calm. "I can see that strong emotions have arisen within you," he said. "But tell me, before you entered this hall, where was this anger?" The priest paused. "It was not there," he admitted. "And if you were to leave now and never think of this place again," Bank asked softly, "what would happen to this anger?" The priest reflected. "It would fade," he said quietly. Bank nodded. "So this anger is not your original nature," he said. "It arises when conditions meet and disappears when they change. But what remains before it arises and after it fades?" The priest fell silent. For the first time, he turned his awareness inward. "There is something," he said slowly, "but I cannot name it." Bank smiled. "There is no need to name it," he replied. "That awareness itself is the unborn mind. It was here before anger, and it will remain after anger disappears. The priest felt his heart soften. He realized that beneath every emotion, there is a quiet presence that never changes. Banks spoke gently. This mind is not created and cannot be destroyed. It is not sacred or ordinary, not Buddhist or non-Buddhist. It is simply the awareness that makes this moment possible. The priest bowed deeply, and in that quiet bow, anger dissolved into understanding. The Buddha taught that hatred never ends through hatred, but only through love. Now, as your thoughts slow and your body grows heavy, let these stories settle gently within you. There is nothing you need to become, nothing you need to prove, nothing you need to escape. Just as the mind was present before every thought, it remains quietly here now. Feel your breath. Feel the stillness beneath movement. And as the night deepens, allow yourself to rest in the awareness that has never left you. This ancient wisdom gently shows how acceptance can dissolve aggression, and how awareness can transform conflict into understanding. Why do we so easily fall into reactive patterns when we feel challenged or threatened? Zen teaching reminds us that we often mistake passing emotions for who we truly are. When anger appears, we say, "I am angry," instead of noticing, anger is arising within awareness. This small shift changes everything. There is a deeper presence beneath every emotion, a quiet clarity that exists before thought, before judgment, before reaction. This presence is not something we must create. It is what we already are. Like the sky that remains vast and unchanged, whether filled with storm clouds or clear blue light, our original awareness remains untouched by the weather of the mind. Think of your day. Perhaps irritation arises when someone speaks harshly. Perhaps jealousy appears when another receives praise. Perhaps anxiety surfaces when uncertainty enters your life. In each moment, emotions come and go like waves. Yet the ocean itself remains. Master Banks' gentle questions revealed this truth. By asking where anger came from and where it went, he showed that emotions are visitors, not owners of the house. This does not mean emotions should be rejected. It means they do not define us. The priest's moment of not knowing opened a door. In Zen, this openness is called beginner's mind, a fresh awareness that meets life without rigid conclusions. Not knowing is not ignorance. It is a deeper form of knowing, one that arises before words and concepts. A Zen master once said that the ordinary mind is the true path. No special state is required. No extraordinary effort is needed. The awareness that hears these words right now is already complete. When aggression is met with aggression, conflict grows. But when hostility is met with spacious presence, something unexpected happens. Recognition becomes possible. Healing begins quietly. The Buddha taught that in the end, what matters is how deeply we have lived, how sincerely we have loved, and how gently we have learned to let go. Tonight, as thoughts drift through your mind, can you sense the silent space in which they appear? Can you feel the awareness that remains steady whether your mind is calm or restless? This awareness is the unborn mind. It has never been damaged by any emotion. It has never been disturbed by any thought. Look within. You are closer than you imagine. Now, let us move into another story, a story about discovering perfection in what we call imperfection. In an ancient temple where Master Dogen taught the simplicity of sitting, morning meditation unfolded in deep silence. Monks sat in neat rows, their backs straight like tall trees, their breath moving slowly with the rhythm of dawn. The air was so still that even the sound of cloth shifting felt loud. Among them sat a young monk named Jishin. His body ached. His legs tingled with numbness. His mind wandered endlessly. Every few moments, he shifted his posture, trying to escape discomfort. But each movement seemed to deepen his frustration. His face revealed a silent battle between how meditation should look and how it actually felt. During a short break, Jishin approached Master Dogen with quiet shame. "Master," he whispered, "I feel like I am failing. My back hurts. My legs fall asleep. My mind refuses to settle. No matter how hard I try, I cannot sit correctly. Am I hopeless?" Dogen looked at him with gentle eyes. "Show me," he said softly. "Show me how you sit incorrectly." Surprised, Jishin demonstrated his tense posture, his restless shifting, his strained expression. Dogen watched carefully. "Excellent," he said with sincere approval. "Now sit incorrectly with complete dedication. Do not fix anything. Do not improve anything. Just sit exactly as you are." Jishin felt confused. "How can incorrect sitting be good?" he asked. "Shouldn't I try to do it properly?" Dogen smiled. "You are fighting your experience," he said quietly. "You created an image of perfect sitting. Now you struggle to match it. This struggle is the real problem. Your pain is your sitting. Your wandering mind is your sitting. Do not add judgment to what already exists." Jishin returned to his cushion. He tried to accept his discomfort, but soon realized he was trying to accept correctly. Seeing this, Dogen approached again. "Now you are trying to accept perfectly," he said softly. "Can you fail at acceptance with full sincerity?" Suddenly, Jishin began to laugh quietly. He saw the endless loop he had created, trying to do everything right, even trying to be wrong in the right way. In that laughter, something loosened. The struggle softened. The effort dissolved. Dogen nodded with quiet joy. "Sitting is not about correct or incorrect," he said. "It is about being fully present without commentary. Your struggle is perfect struggle. Your peace is perfect peace. Your confusion is perfect confusion. Just sit. Let sitting sit itself." From that day on, Jishin's practice changed. Not because he mastered technique, but because he stopped fighting experience. He discovered that what he sought was already present in what was happening. Ancient wisdom reminds us that perfection often hides inside imperfection. We suffer because we chase ideals. We imagine how meditation should feel, how spirituality should look, how life should unfold. Then we measure reality against these images and feel disappointed when it does not match. But the problem is not reality. The problem is resistance. True meditation is not forcing change. It is meeting this moment without adding extra struggle. When we stop trying to be different, change happens naturally. Throughout your day, how often do you try to correct your experience? Perhaps you strive to feel calmer, more loving, more focused. Yet this striving often creates tension, pushing peace further away. A Zen teacher once said that awakening is not gaining something, but releasing something. When we stop chasing peace, peace reveals itself. Tonight, as you prepare for rest, can you allow your experience to be exactly as it is? If your body is tense, let it be tense. If your mind is active, let it be active. If your emotions are heavy, let them be heavy. What happens when you stop trying to change this moment and simply rest within it? The path is not somewhere else. It is here. Now, let us flow into another story, a story about trusting the current of life. In a clear and luminous river, a small world existed beneath the surface. Tiny creatures lived along the sandy bottom, holding tightly to stones and roots. For generations, they had learned one rule: hold on. The elders warned them, the current is dangerous. If you let go, you will be swept away into the unknown. So each creature clung firmly, afraid of movement, afraid of change. But one small creature grew tired of grasping. He watched the current above him, noticing its quiet strength and graceful flow. "I am weary of clinging," he said one day. "I do not know where the current leads, but I trust that it carries wisdom. If I continue holding on, I will die of boredom before I truly live." The others cried out in fear. "Fool," they warned. "If you let go, the current will destroy you." Yet the small creature had decided. He released his grip. Immediately, the current pulled him into motion. He was thrown against rocks, tumbled through rough waters, feeling pain he had never known before. But he did not grasp again. Slowly, something changed. The current lifted him upward, away from the sharp stones. The tumbling ceased. Now he flowed freely, moving with the river instead of against it. Creatures in distant places saw him and cried out, "Look, a miracle! One of us who can fly." The flowing creature called back gently, "I am no miracle. The river lifts us all, if only we dare to let go." But the others clung tighter, calling him a savior, while refusing to release their own grip. When he disappeared downstream, they began telling stories about a miraculous being, while continuing to hold on to their stones. The Buddha taught that we lose only what we cling to. We hold tightly to control, to identity, to familiar patterns, believing they protect us. Yet this grasping is the source of suffering. Life is movement. Change is inevitable. When we resist the current, we exhaust ourselves. When we trust it, we discover unexpected freedom. Consider where you are clinging. Perhaps to a past identity. Perhaps to a relationship that has changed. Perhaps to an image of who you think you must be. The current of life continues regardless. Tonight, what might you release? A worry about tomorrow. A regret from yesterday. A story about yourself that no longer fits. Feel the gentle flow of this moment. Trust its direction. Let go of what has passed. Let go of what may come. Let go of what is happening now. The current you feared may be the very force that carries you home. And now, we arrive at another quiet teaching, a story about transforming suffering. In a peaceful monastery surrounded by rolling hills, an old master lived with deep patience and quiet wisdom. Among his students was a young apprentice whose heart felt heavy with complaints. Each morning he arrived with new frustrations. "Master," he said often, "life is difficult. My meditation is disturbed. My body aches. My mind never rests. When will suffering end?" The master listened without judgment. But after many days, he realized that words alone could not change the student's understanding. One morning, as sunlight poured through the windows, the master spoke gently. "My friend," he said, "please bring me a handful of salt." The apprentice returned with white crystals in his palms. The master placed a small glass of water on the table. "Put the salt into this water," he said softly, "and drink it." The young man hesitated. He looked at the glass, feeling uncertainty rise within him. And in that moment of hesitation, a deeper lesson quietly began to unfold. The old farmer's story invites us to look deeper than the surface of events. So often, we judge moments too quickly, believing we understand their meaning before time has revealed its full shape. We see only the first chapter, yet we assume we know the ending. In the quiet rhythm of Zen teaching, the farmer's question echoes like a bell in the mind. How do you know? This question is not meant to confuse us. It is meant to soften us. When we label experiences as good or bad, success or failure, blessing or disaster, we create rigid walls around our perception. But life rarely moves in straight lines. It unfolds like a river, winding through landscapes we cannot yet see. Many moments that once felt painful later become gateways to growth. And many moments that once felt fortunate later reveal hidden challenges. The truth is rarely simple. It is layered, fluid, and alive. Zen Buddhism teaches that wisdom begins when we loosen our grip on certainty. When we allow ourselves to rest in not knowing, something spacious opens within us. In that space, we are no longer trapped by immediate reactions. We begin to see with wider eyes and gentler hearts. Think of your own life. Perhaps there was a time when something ended. A relationship, a dream, a plan, and it felt unbearable. Yet later, that ending led you toward a path you could never have imagined. Perhaps there was a moment of triumph that seemed perfect, only to reveal new responsibilities and pressures. If you look back quietly, you may notice how often your first judgment was incomplete. The farmer did not deny pain or joy. He simply refused to imprison himself within them. He understood something subtle, that life is larger than any single moment, and that truth reveals itself slowly. The Buddha taught that clinging to fixed views is a source of suffering. When we insist that things must be one way or another, we close ourselves to the mystery of unfolding reality. But when we soften our judgments, we discover a deeper peace, not because life becomes predictable, but because our hearts become flexible. This flexibility is not weakness. It is strength. Like bamboo that bends in the wind rather than breaking, a mind that remains open can move with change instead of resisting it. Tonight, as you rest in stillness, notice the stories your mind tells about your experiences. Perhaps it whispers, "This is bad." Or perhaps it insists, "This is good." Can you gently loosen those labels? What if you allowed each moment to remain unfinished, like a story still being written? What if you trusted that meaning will reveal itself in its own time? In Zen, this attitude is called beginner's mind, a mind that meets life without rigid conclusions, a heart that remains curious rather than certain. When we live from this place, we are less shaken by change and less intoxicated by success. We learn to walk through life with quiet humility, understanding that we do not see the whole picture. The farmer's wisdom does not promise that life will be easy. It offers something more subtle, the freedom from unnecessary suffering. When we stop demanding immediate answers, we discover the peace of patience. When we stop judging every moment, we discover the beauty of uncertainty. The Buddha once said that wisdom is born from seeing things as they truly are, not as we wish them to be. But seeing clearly does not mean seeing everything at once. It means being willing to wait. Tonight, as your breath becomes slower, allow the mind to rest from its constant need to evaluate. You do not need to decide whether today was good or bad. You do not need to solve the meaning of every experience. You can simply be here. Like the old farmer, you can stand quietly in the middle of life's shifting seasons, holding joy and sorrow with the same gentle hands. In this quiet acceptance, something within you begins to relax. The mind grows softer, the heart grows wider, and slowly, without effort, you begin to feel carried by a deeper current. A current that does not require judgment, only presence. As the night deepens, let the farmer's question dissolve into silence. How do you know? Perhaps you do not need to know tonight. Perhaps it is enough to rest in the mystery. And in that resting, you may discover a peace that does not depend on answers, a peace that flows quietly beneath every experience. Let your thoughts drift like clouds across an open sky. Let your judgments loosen their grip. Let your awareness expand like a vast, silent lake. In this spaciousness, sleep arrives not as something you chase, but as something that gently finds you. Rest now. There is nothing you need to understand, nothing you need to decide. Only this moment, quiet, whole, and complete. Sometimes what feels like loss quietly becomes the doorway to growth. A bond that ended may have created space for a deeper understanding of yourself. A season of illness may have revealed what truly deserves your attention and love. Looking back, you might notice that the pain you once feared was not the enemy you imagined, but a hidden teacher guiding you toward clarity. This does not mean we should become cold or detached from life. To feel joy and sorrow is part of being human. The farmer, too, felt concern when his horse disappeared and worry when his son was injured. Yet he did not build dramatic stories about what those events must ultimately mean. He learned to distinguish between meeting what is happening and imprisoning himself in conclusions about the future. Zen wisdom invites us into this gentle space of openness. Suzuki Roshi spoke of beginner's mind, a mind that meets each moment as if for the first time, free from rigid expectations and fixed interpretations. When we cultivate this openness, we become less reactive and more responsive, less rigid and more fluid, less trapped by fear and more guided by awareness. In Buddhist teaching, this quality is called equanimity. It is the quiet strength that allows us to remain present whether life unfolds according to our wishes or not. Equanimity is not indifference. It is engagement without clinging, participation without obsession, care without captivity. When we learn to stay with experience instead of rushing to interpret it, a deeper wisdom begins to emerge naturally. Often, we discover that the right response arises on its own when we stop forcing answers too soon. The farmer's attitude reveals a subtle trust, not in specific outcomes, but in the intelligence of life itself. He acted with care in each moment, yet remained open to possibilities beyond his understanding. Tonight, as you reflect on moments you once labeled as fortunate or unfortunate, can you hold those labels more lightly? Perhaps you will sense that peace does not come from perfect luck, but from the ability to meet whatever arises with clarity and gentleness. The Buddha reminded us that everything changes, not only events, but also our interpretations of them. What once seemed unbearable may later appear meaningful. What once seemed perfect may later reveal its limitations. As our journey through Zen wisdom continues, we encounter a teaching about the immediacy of spiritual experience, the realization that heaven and hell are not distant realms, but states of mind unfolding here and now. A monk once traveled from a faraway province, crossing mountains and rivers to reach the temple of Master Sengai. His heart was filled with questions that had troubled him for many months. He did not seek casual conversation. He sought answers to the deepest mysteries of existence. When he was granted an audience with the master, he approached with solemn reverence, believing he was about to receive profound explanations about invisible worlds. "Master," he said softly, "I wish to understand the nature of heaven. What is the realm that awaits those who live with virtue and wisdom?" Instead of answering, the master gently lay down on the floor. He closed his eyes, his body relaxed, his breath slow and effortless, as if he had entered a state of perfect ease. The monk waited. Minutes passed. Still no words. Confused but patient, he continued his inquiry. "And what of hell?" he asked. "What becomes of those who suffer after death? What is the nature of punishment and darkness?" Suddenly, the master began to snore loudly, his breath exaggerated, his presence filling the hall with disturbance and noise. The monk felt a surge of frustration. He had traveled so far, carrying sincere questions, yet felt mocked by silence and absurd gestures. Anger rose within him. His heart tightened. His mind burned with judgment. Feeling insulted, he turned away and began to leave the hall. At that exact moment, the master sat up with sudden clarity and pointed toward him. "That," he said calmly, "is hell." The Buddha taught that our world is shaped by our thoughts. Heaven and hell are not places we reach after death. They are experiences created by the state of our consciousness in each moment. When the master rested in quiet ease, he was not performing a metaphor. He was embodying heaven, a mind free from agitation, a heart free from resistance, a presence rooted in simple being. When he created disturbance through snoring, he was not merely acting. He was revealing the essence of hell, restlessness, irritation, conflict, and the turbulence of a mind caught in reaction. The monk's anger completed the lesson. Without realizing it, he stepped directly into the hell he had been asking about. This story teaches us something intimate and immediate. Heaven is not far away. It is present whenever we rest in acceptance and awareness. Hell is not imposed by fate. It arises whenever we cling to judgment and resistance. Throughout each day, we move between these states again and again. A quiet moment of gratitude, heaven. Surge of resentment, the calm beauty of twilight, heaven. The replay of old regrets, hell. Zen practice helps us notice these shifts and recognize our role in creating them. We are not powerless victims of circumstances. We participate in shaping the quality of our experience through the way we meet what arises. Spiritual transformation does not require distant realms or future achievements. It begins the moment we recognize the nature of our mind. The monk expected wisdom to arrive in complex explanations. But true teaching often bypasses words and points directly to lived experience. Tonight, as your thoughts move gently through awareness, notice the moments when your mind softens into peace and the moments when it tightens into struggle. Can you sense the difference? Can you recognize that heaven and hell are not imposed from outside, but woven from the fabric of your responses? The Buddha taught that peace is not something we search for beyond ourselves. It is something we remember when we stop fighting the present moment. As we continue our journey, let us turn toward another story, a tale about the invisible burdens we carry through life. In a quiet monastery garden, where morning light shimmered across dew-covered paths, a young seeker approached his teacher with a heavy heart. "Master," he said softly, "I feel trapped by my past. Why do I keep carrying old memories? Why can I not move beyond them? The teacher listened in silence, then pointed toward a delicate maze of translucent silk panels glowing in the filtered sunlight. "Walk through the maze," he said gently, handing the young man a backpack. "Carry this with you. It will help you stay focused. But be careful, it is heavier than it appears." The seeker lifted the backpack and felt its weight press down upon him. Step by step, he entered the maze. Inside, he encountered walls that seemed impossible to cross. Through the thin silk, he could see others moving freely, yet every path he chose felt blocked. Exhausted, he sat down and wondered what held him back. As he struggled forward, the backpack grew heavier, cutting into his shoulders. Driven by curiosity, he removed it and opened it. Inside, there was nothing. Yet when he lifted it again, the weight remained. A quiet voice arose within him. "The weight is not in the bag. It is within you." Suddenly, memories surfaced, old wounds, forgotten anger, unspoken grief. With each memory, the backpack grew heavier. Then understanding dawned. "I am the weight," he whispered. "I carry what I refuse to release." With trembling voice, he began to forgive, not to excuse what happened, but to free his own heart. As forgiveness deepened, the backpack grew lighter. New paths opened in the maze. His steps became effortless. Finally, he felt himself lifted above the maze, seeing clearly how others remained trapped by burdens they did not realize they carried. When he returned to his teacher, his face shone with quiet clarity. "I discovered that my darkness created my weight," he said, "and my letting go gave me wings." The teacher smiled silently. The Buddha taught that holding on to anger is like grasping a burning coal with the intention of throwing it at someone else. We are the ones who get burned. This story reveals a gentle truth. Our past does not imprison us. Our attachment to it does. We carry invisible burdens not because they are real, but because we refuse to release them. Tonight, as your breath becomes slower, notice what weight you may still be carrying. Is it resentment, regret, fear, or a story about who you believe yourself to be? What if you could set it down even for a moment? The Buddha reminded us that we deserve our own compassion. Freedom begins when we choose to travel lightly. And now, let us turn to one final story, a teaching about the transient nature of all experience. A young meditation student had practiced diligently for many months. Each morning and evening, he sat quietly, following his breath as he had been taught. Some days felt peaceful. Others felt chaotic. Recently, his practice had become difficult. His mind raced. His body ached. Sleepiness and distraction pulled him away from stillness. One morning, overwhelmed by frustration, he sought his teacher. He found the old monk tending a garden in the early light. The student poured out his complaints, his restless mind, his aching body, his sense of failure. The teacher listened without interruption. When the student finished, the monk looked at him gently and said only 3 words. "It will pass." Then he returned to his work. The student stood there in silence, uncertain and unsatisfied, yet strangely touched by the simplicity of the response. And in that quiet moment, something within him began to soften. In the days that followed, the student did not abandon his practice. Even when frustration arose, he continued to sit quietly each morning and evening, allowing breath and silence to meet him without resistance. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, something within him began to soften. The storm of distractions lost its intensity. His body gradually learned the rhythm of stillness, and between waves of thought, small islands of calm began to appear. By the end of the week, his experience had changed in ways he could not ignore. Moments of clarity replaced confusion. Gentle peace replaced struggle. His practice felt alive, luminous, and effortless. Filled with joy, he sought out his teacher once more. This time, he found the old monk sweeping fallen leaves in the quiet courtyard of the temple. The student approached with a face bright with excitement and gratitude. "Master," he said softly, "my meditation has become beautiful. I feel awake, peaceful, and deeply present. My mind is clear. My body is at ease. Everything in my practice feels harmonious and full of light." The teacher paused, resting his hands on the broom. His expression was the same as before, calm, open, and undisturbed. After a moment, he spoke with gentle simplicity. "It will pass." This time, the words did not disappoint the student. Instead, they entered him quietly, like a bell echoing through still air. His joy did not disappear, but it transformed into something subtler, a quiet understanding. He realized that his teacher was not speaking only about meditation. He was pointing toward the nature of all experience. The Buddha taught that everything arises and fades. Not only suffering, but also pleasure. Not only confusion, but also clarity. All states of mind are visitors passing through the open sky of awareness. Why, then, do we suffer so deeply when things change? Zen wisdom suggests that much of our pain comes from resistance, from our desperate attempt to hold what is pleasant and our equally desperate attempt to escape what is unpleasant. We exhaust ourselves trying to control what cannot be controlled. The student's experiences, both painful and joyful, were equally temporary. The teacher's simple phrase pointed beyond these fluctuations toward something more stable than any condition. Not the stability of fixed circumstances, but the stability of awareness itself, the silent space in which all experiences arise and dissolve. Now, consider your own life. How much energy do you spend trying to prolong happiness, to preserve success, to maintain comfort? And how much effort do you spend resisting sadness, avoiding uncertainty, or fighting moments of discomfort? Both grasping and resistance quietly create suffering. In Zen practice, we learn to cultivate a gentle balance, a calm acceptance of change. This does not mean becoming indifferent or uncaring. It means remaining centered, whether life feels bright or heavy, whether circumstances feel easy or difficult. The teacher's words, "It will pass," carry both comfort and challenge. They offer comfort in times of pain, reminding us that no darkness lasts forever. They offer challenge in times of joy, reminding us not to build our identity upon temporary peaks. A Zen master once said, "You are already complete, and yet there is always room to grow." This paradox reflects the same truth. We can fully experience the present moment while holding it lightly, knowing that change is inevitable. Look gently at your own patterns. Where are you trying to make permanent what is naturally fleeting? Where are you exhausting yourself by fighting conditions that will shift on their own if you simply allow them to move? The Buddha taught that all conditioned things are impermanent, yet he did not teach withdrawal from life. He taught wholehearted engagement, combined with deep letting go. We can care deeply about our practice, our relationships, our work, and our growth, while remembering that all forms and experiences are temporary guests in the vast space of awareness. When this understanding settles within us, success no longer intoxicates us, and failure no longer destroys us. Instead of being tossed by the waves of life, we begin to rest in the ocean itself, the awareness that remains while everything else changes. Tonight, as you notice whatever arises within you, comfort or discomfort, clarity or confusion, ease or restlessness, can you remember the teacher's quiet wisdom? Can you hold your experience fully, while also knowing that it, like everything else, will pass? The Buddha once said that just as the ocean has one taste, the taste of salt, so the path of wisdom has one taste, the taste of freedom. This freedom is not found in permanent pleasure, but in learning to move gracefully with the changing rhythm of existence. And now, as our journey continues, let us turn toward another story, a story about the shadows we create within our own minds. It is the tale of a haunting that was never truly a haunting at all. For many years, a man lived quietly with his beloved wife. Their bond was sincere, their companionship gentle and warm. But life is fragile. As time passed, illness came to her body, and her strength slowly faded. On her final days, as breath became shallow and time grew thin, she held her husband's hand with trembling intensity. "My love," she whispered, "I cannot bear the thought of leaving you, and I cannot bear the thought of you loving another." Her eyes were filled with both tenderness and fear. "Promise me," she said, "that after I am gone, you will not love anyone else. Promise that you will remain faithful to my memory. If you break this vow, I will return to haunt you." Her husband, broken by grief, made the promise without hesitation. In that moment, love and sorrow were stronger than reason. For many months after her passing, he kept his vow. He withdrew from gatherings, avoided companionship, and lived in a world of silence and memory. Yet time moves quietly forward. Gradually, the sharp edge of grief softened. Life began to call him back. One day, in a simple marketplace, he met a woman with gentle eyes and a quiet smile. Conversation became friendship. Friendship slowly became affection. And before he realized it, his heart opened once again. When they became engaged, his old fear returned. That night, as darkness filled the room, a sudden chill swept through the air. Before him appeared the figure of his deceased wife. Her face was pale, her gaze filled with accusation. "You have broken your promise," she said. "You have betrayed our love." But what terrified him most was not her presence, but her knowledge. Night after night, she returned, repeating his conversations word for word, revealing his private moments, exposing thoughts he believed were hidden. Sleep left him. His body weakened. His mind trembled. In despair, he sought the guidance of a Zen master. "Master," he said, "my wife's ghost visits me each night. She knows everything I do, everything I say. I am losing my sanity." The old monk listened in silence. Then he smiled gently. "This is indeed a remarkable spirit," he said. "But tonight I will tell you what to do." That evening, when the ghost appeared again, the man followed the master's instructions. "You are truly all-knowing," he said calmly. "If you know everything, then answer one question for me." He reached into a bag of beans beside his bed, closed his fist, and held it toward the apparition. "Tell me," he said softly, "how many beans I am holding in my hand." The ghost opened her mouth, but no answer came. Her form began to fade, like mist touched by morning light. And then she disappeared forever. The man was free. The Buddha taught that we become what we think. Our world is shaped not only by events, but by the stories we create within ourselves. The ghost was not a supernatural being. It was the man's guilt, his fear, his unresolved emotions, given form by his own mind. How often in our own lives are we haunted by voices that judge us, accuse us, or claim to know our future? These voices often speak with the echoes of the past, yet their power comes entirely from our belief. Zen practice teaches us to see clearly, to distinguish between what is truly present and what the mind is adding. When we stop feeding our inner ghosts, they lose their strength. Tonight, as thoughts arise within you, can you observe them gently without believing every word they speak? Can you see that many fears are only shadows passing through awareness? As the Buddha said, when we find our own light, the darkness loses its power. And now, let us continue our journey with a story about fearlessness and compassion. Things like this are not meant for someone like me. This cannot be real. The moment those words left his lips, the world around him began to dissolve. First, the woman's gentle smile faded like mist in the morning air. Then the servants disappeared, one by one. The elegant house softened into emptiness, and finally, even the simple meal he had tasted vanished into silence. Soon, he was alone again, leaning against what now appeared to be nothing more than an ordinary tree, accompanied only by the familiar weight of his old worries. He shook his head slowly, as if confirming what he had always believed. "I knew it," he whispered and turned away, walking back into the forest. With each step, his mind returned to its habitual rhythm, the familiar cycle of complaint, doubt, and quiet resignation. The Buddha taught that we become what we think. Our lives are shaped not only by circumstance, but by the beliefs we quietly carry within. At the center of this teaching lies a simple truth: faith creates possibility, while doubt quietly destroys it. Why do we so quickly reject the good that enters our lives? Zen wisdom suggests that the human mind is deeply conditioned to trust limitation more than potential. We grow accustomed to struggle. We become attached to our problems. And when abundance appears, it feels unfamiliar, even threatening to our identity. Consider your own day. How often do small miracles pass unnoticed? A gesture of kindness from a stranger, a moment of unexpected beauty, an opportunity that could gently change your path. How quickly do you dismiss these moments as coincidence, illusion, or something too good to last? Often, it is doubt itself that causes us to walk away from the very blessings we have been seeking. The wishing tree symbolizes a universe that responds to belief, a reality that reflects our deepest assumptions about what we deserve and what is possible. When we meet life with openness and trust, we begin to see doors that were always there. When we meet life with cynicism and self-doubt, those same doors seem to disappear. The man beneath the tree had everything he needed, yet his conditioning told him that such gifts could not belong to him. His belief in limitation became stronger than the evidence before his eyes. This is the quiet tragedy of self-doubt. It leads us to abandon the solutions already within reach. A Zen teacher once said, "You are complete as you are, and still capable of endless growth." This paradox reveals a delicate balance, accepting our worth while remaining open to transformation. The man under the tree could not hold both truths at once. He could not believe that he was worthy of goodness and that change was possible. In our modern lives, we encounter wishing trees every day. A colleague offers genuine friendship, yet we suspect hidden motives. A job opportunity appears, yet we convince ourselves we are not ready. A relationship feels sincere, yet we sabotage it before it can deepen. Each time we choose familiar limitation over unfamiliar possibility, we walk away from our own wishing tree. The Buddha encouraged us to question everything and discover our own light. But there is a subtle difference between doubt that leads to wisdom and doubt that leads to self-destruction. Wise doubt seeks truth. Self-defeating doubt assumes failure and treats fear as fact. Zen practice invites us to notice when we reject love, abundance, or joy simply because they do not match the story we have told ourselves about who we are. Can we remain open to the possibility that we might be more capable, more deserving, and more lovable than we have believed? Tonight, as you reflect on your day, can you sense moments when you may have turned away from your own wishing tree? Perhaps a compliment you brushed aside. An opportunity you believed was not meant for you. A moment of joy you cut short because it felt too fragile to trust. What would it mean to quietly trust your worthiness to receive the gifts of life? The Buddha taught that one candle can light thousands of others without losing its own flame. Happiness does not diminish when shared. The magic of the wishing tree is not weakened by granting wishes. It is fulfilled by them. And our capacity to receive blessings is not reduced by acceptance. It expands. Now, let us turn gently toward another story. A story about returning to what is real when fear begins to overwhelm the mind. This is the tale of the captured warrior. In ancient Japan, during an age of constant conflict between rival clans, a skilled warrior found himself on the losing side of a brutal battle. As his companions fell and defeat became unavoidable, he was seized by enemy soldiers and dragged away from the battlefield. His armor was stripped away. His weapons were taken. That night, he was thrown into a narrow prison cell, its stone walls closing in around him like silent witnesses. The heavy wooden door slammed shut, its echo vibrating through his body. As darkness settled, his mind began to race. Tomorrow they would come for him. He knew the customs of war. First would come interrogation, then torture, and finally, execution. His heart pounded violently. His breath grew shallow. Cold sweat covered his skin. Sleep felt impossible as his mind painted vivid images of suffering that had not yet arrived. Hours passed in restless torment. He paced the cell. He sat against the cold stone wall. He lay upon the rough straw floor. Nothing eased the storm within his thoughts. Then, in the depth of his despair, he remembered the voice of his Zen teacher, the gentle voice that had once guided him at the monastery. The words arose within him as if the teacher were sitting beside him. Tomorrow is not real. Only this moment exists. At first, his frightened mind resisted the teaching. How could tomorrow be unreal when danger felt so certain? Yet as he sat quietly, allowing the words to sink deeper, something began to shift. He noticed his breath. In this moment, he was breathing freely. He felt the straw beneath him, rough, yet not unbearable. He heard the wind moving through the trees outside the prison. A sound older than conflict, older than fear. In this moment, he was not being tortured. In this moment, he was not dying. In this moment, there was only a man sitting quietly in a cell, alive and aware. The terrors that had seemed so overwhelming revealed themselves as nothing more than thoughts about a future that existed only in imagination. As understanding deepened, a gentle peace settled over him. His breath slowed. His heart found a steady rhythm. For the first time since his capture, he smiled. The teacher's wisdom had freed him from a prison far more confining than stone walls, the prison of anxious thoughts. Within minutes, he fell into a deep and peaceful sleep. The Buddha taught that the only moment we ever truly inhabit is this one. Why, then, do we torment ourselves with endless visions of the future? Zen wisdom explains that the mind evolved to protect us, constantly scanning for danger. Yet when we mistake imagined threats for reality, this same capacity becomes a source of suffering. Look gently into your own experience. How much of your anxiety comes from futures that may never arrive? The warrior's story reminds us that we can acknowledge challenges without being consumed by them. Planning has its place, but obsession steals peace. Impermanence teaches that everything changes. The future remains unwritten. Tonight, as your mind begins to slow, remember the captured warrior. Ask yourself quietly, what is truly happening right now? Feel your breath. Sense your body. Notice the stillness around you. In this moment, there is nothing to fear. And now, let us continue our journey with a story about generosity and freedom, a story known as the moon in the window.